I remember the exact moment my world shattered. It was a Tuesday afternoon, ordinary in every sense, until Ethan, my 10-year-old son, dropped the bombshell. "Mom, I locked the basement door," he said, his voice innocent, unaware of the chaos he had just unleashed. My heart skipped a beat. The basement, Nathan's sanctuary, the place he retreated to every evening, claiming he needed time for his woodworking projects. But today, he wasn't alone. Today, my sister Rachel, the golden child in our family, the one who could do no wrong, was with him. They thought they were clever, sneaking around while I was supposed to be out with Ethan. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. My name is Claire Montgomery. At 32, I thought I had my life figured out. A stable marriage to Nathan, my college sweetheart, a beautiful home in the suburbs, and our son, Ethan. I had always wanted a bigger family, but life and my relationship with Rachel had made me reconsider. Growing up, it was always Rachel this, Rachel that. Our parents doted on her, ignoring my achievements, my struggles. I never wanted Ethan to feel that kind of neglect, that sting of favoritism. As I stood there processing Ethan's words, a storm brewed inside me. Rage, betrayal, disbelief, they swirled in my head, each emotion more overpowering than the last. Nathan and Rachel? It was like a sick joke, a plot twist in a trashy novel. I needed to see it for myself. I needed to confront them. But as I moved towards the basement door, I stopped. No, they didn't deserve the satisfaction of seeing me break. They didn't deserve my tears, my anger. In that moment, a cold, hard resolve settled over me. Let them stay there, locked in their den of deceit. Let them wonder, panic even, when I didn't come to their rescue. Ethan's voice snapped me out of my reverie. "Mom, are you okay?" I forced a smile, my heart aching for my innocent child, caught in the middle of this sordid affair. "Yes, honey. I just remembered we have that picnic today, remember? Just the two of us." His face lit up and guilt gnawed at me. I was about to drag my child into my plan for revenge, but it was too late to turn back now. "Let's get going," I said, my voice steady. As we drove away from the house, I couldn't help but glance at the rearview mirror, half expecting Nathan or Rachel to come running out, calling for us to stop. But there was nothing. Just the quiet suburban street, basking in the afternoon sun, oblivious to the drama unfolding in my home. The picnic was a blur. Ethan chattered about school, his friends, the new video game he wanted. I nodded and smiled, but my thoughts were elsewhere, on the betrayal that had uprooted my life. As we laid out our spread on the grassy field, Ethan's laughter ringing in my ears, a part of me wondered if I was doing the right thing. But then I remembered their laughter, their whispers, the way they thought they could make a fool out of me. No, this was just the beginning. Rachel and Nathan had crossed a line, and there was no going back. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, I made a silent vow. I would make them pay. They would regret the day they underestimated Claire Montgomery. The next morning dawned with an air of pretense, as if the sun itself was trying to brush off the darkness of the previous night. I had barely slept, my mind replaying the scenario over and over again. Nathan and Rachel, locked in the basement, the secret they thought they had so cleverly hidden now laid bare. My phone buzzed incessantly with calls from Nathan. I watched it ring, feeling a twisted satisfaction in ignoring his desperate attempts to reach me. Let him stew in his guilt and fear. Ethan, oblivious to the storm brewing, munched on his cereal. "Is Dad still in the basement? He sure loves that place," he remarked innocently. I forced a smile, hiding the turmoil inside. "Yes, he's very busy with his projects," I lied smoothly. As Ethan left for school, I braced myself for what was to come. The confrontation was inevitable, but first, I needed answers. I needed to know how deep this betrayal ran. I dialed Rachel. She picked up on the first ring, her voice laced with panic. "Claire, oh my God, you won't believe what happened. Nathan and I got locked in the basement. It was so scary." Her feigned innocence fueled my anger. "Really, Rachel? How terrifying for you," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. She hesitated, sensing my mood. "Claire, I can explain. It's not what you think." "Oh, I think it's exactly what I think. How long, Rachel? How long have you been sneaking around with my husband?" There was silence on the other end. Then a soft sob. "It just happened, Claire. It wasn't planned, I swear." I laughed bitterly. "Just happened? You expect me to believe that? I'm not a fool, Rachel." she cried, now her sobs loud and unconvincing. Please, Claire, you have to believe me. It was a mistake. A mistake? No, Rachel. A mistake is forgetting to buy milk at the store. This is a choice to betray your own sister. I hope he was worth it. I hung up before she could reply, her sobs still echoing in my ear. I felt a rush of power, of control. For once, I was not the overlooked sister, the one left in the shadows. I was the one calling the shots. But my triumph was short-lived. The reality of what had happened, of what I had lost, began to sink in. Nathan and I had built a life together, a family, and now it was all crumbling down, like a house of cards in a gust of wind. I looked around the house at the photos on the walls, the memories we had created. They now felt like a mockery, a cruel joke. I had been living a lie, and the truth was a bitter pill to swallow. But swallow it I must. There was no going back now. Nathan and Rachel had made their choice, and I had made mine. The path ahead was unclear, fraught with pain and uncertainty. But one thing was certain. I would not be the victim in this sordid tale. I would write my own ending, and it would be one of triumph, not defeat. As I gathered the photos, tearing them from their frames, a plan began to form in my mind. Rachel and Nathan had taken everything from me. It was time to return the favor. The day unfolded with a deceptive calm, the normalcy of my routine clashing with the turmoil within. But beneath the surface, my mind was a whirlwind of plotting and planning. Today was the day I'd set my revenge in motion. I had arranged for Ethan to spend the weekend at a friend's house. He deserved a break from the tense atmosphere at home, and I needed space to enact my plan without his innocent eyes watching. I called Tyler, Rachel's son from her first marriage, and invited him over. Tyler, a quiet 15-year-old, had always been close to Ethan, more like a brother than a cousin. There was a maturity in him, a certain depth that came from dealing with Rachel's antics all his life. "Hey, Aunt Claire," Tyler greeted me, a hint of uncertainty in his voice. "Is everything okay?" I sighed. "Tyler, I need to talk to you. It's about your mom and Nathan." His expression hardened slightly. "I'm not surprised," he said, a note of bitterness creeping into his voice. "Mom's always been like this." I was taken aback by his candidness. "You know?" He nodded. "I've seen her do this before, with my stepdad. She thinks nobody knows, but I've seen enough." His words confirmed my worst fears, and I felt a wave of sympathy for the boy. "I'm planning something, Tyler. A picnic this weekend. I need your help." Tyler's eyes narrowed, understanding dawning. "You want to leave them alone at the house," he surmised. "Yes," I admitted. "I want them to be exposed for everyone to see them for who they really are." "I'm in," Tyler said without hesitation. His loyalty to me over his own mother was both heartwarming and heartbreaking. The weekend arrived, and everything was set. The picnic was a ruse, a way to get everyone out of the house except Nathan and Rachel. I made sure they knew about it, dropping hints about how I'd be out the whole day, the house empty. As we left for the picnic, I saw Rachel's car pull into the driveway. My heart raced with a mix of anxiety and anticipation. This was it, the point of no return. Tyler was unusually quiet during the drive. As we set up our picnic spot, I noticed him staring into the distance, lost in thought. "You okay, Tyler?" I asked gently. He turned to me, his eyes filled with a mixture of anger and sadness. I can't believe she's doing this again. To you, Aunt Claire." I reached out, placing a hand on his shoulder. "I'm sorry you're caught in the middle of this." He shook his head. "I'm not sorry. I'm glad I can help expose her. Maybe then she'll realize." His voice trailed off, but I understood. Tyler, like me, was seeking closure, a way to deal with the betrayal that had upended our lives. As the day wore on, I found myself checking my phone constantly, waiting for the call or message that would signal the unraveling of Nathan and Rachel's deceit. But nothing came. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows on the ground, Tyler spoke up. "Do you think it worked?" I nodded, a grim sense of satisfaction settling in. "Oh, it worked. Tomorrow, their little secret won't be so secret anymore." And with that, we packed up, leaving the serenity of the picnic spot behind. I was ready to face the consequences of my actions, ready to watch as the lives of those who had wronged me came crashing down. The following morning, I woke up to a sense of eerie calmness, the kind that often precedes a storm. Today was the day everything would come to light. Today, Nathan and Rachel's deceit would be exposed for all to see. I drove back home, my heart pounding with a mix of anticipation and dread. As I approached the house, I saw Rachel's car still parked in the driveway. A sly smile crept across my face. They had taken the bait. I entered the house, the silence greeting me like an old friend. No sign of Nathan or Rachel upstairs. I made my way to the basement door, my steps deliberate. The moment of truth was upon us. As I opened the door, the scene that unfolded before me was more satisfying than I had dared to hope. There they were, Rachel and Nathan, disheveled and frantic, realizing their secret rendezvous had turned into a humiliating trap. "Claire!" Rachel exclaimed, her voice a mix of surprise and fear. "Oh my God, we were locked in here. It was an accident!" Nathan stood there, silent, his eyes avoiding mine. The guilt was written all over his face, confirming what I already knew. "An accident? Really, Rachel? You expect me to believe that?" I sneered, my voice dripping with contempt. Nathan finally spoke, his voice weak. "Claire, I'm so sorry. It's not what you think." I laughed, a harsh, mocking sound. "Not what I think. I think it's exactly what it looks like. My husband and my sister betraying me in my own home." Rachel stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "Claire, please, you have to understand. It was a mistake, a moment of weakness." "A moment of weakness?" I echoed, my anger boiling over. "No, Rachel, this was a choice to betray your own family." Nathan reached out, attempting to touch my arm. I recoiled as if his touch burned. "Don't you dare," I hissed. "You've lost the right to touch me, to even speak to me." I could see the shame in his eyes, the realization of what he had lost dawning on him. But it was too late. The damage was done. "Get out," I said, my voice cold and steady. "Get out of my house, out of my life. I never want to see either of you again." Rachel sobbed, her cries echoing in the empty basement. "Claire, please, I'm your sister." "You were my sister," I corrected her, my voice void of any warmth. "Not anymore." With that, I turned and left them there, their pleas and apologies fading into the background. I had done it. I had exposed their betrayal, and in doing so I had reclaimed my power, my dignity. But as I closed the door behind me, a wave of sadness washed over me. My marriage, my family, the life I had built, it was all in ruins. And yet there was a strange sense of freedom in that destruction. A chance to start anew, to build a life that was truly mine. As I sat in my living room, the silence no longer felt oppressive. It felt like a blank canvas, waiting for me to paint my new beginning. The aftermath of the confrontation left a bitter taste in my mouth. As much as I yearned for justice and retribution, nothing prepared me for the hollow victory that followed. My home, once a haven of love and warmth, now felt like a barren wasteland tainted with betrayal. I was in the midst of packing Nathan's belongings when my phone rang. The caller ID flashed a number I didn't recognize. Hesitantly, I answered, "Hello? Mrs. Montgomery? This is Officer Daniels from the local police department. We've received a complaint about a domestic disturbance at your address. Is everything all right?" My heart skipped a beat. So it had come to this. Nathan or Rachel must have reached out to the authorities. I composed myself. "Yes, everything is fine now. There was a misunderstanding, but it's been resolved." "Are you sure, ma'am? We can have officers come by to ensure your safety." "No, that won't be necessary. Thank you, officer." I hung up, my mind racing. This was far from over. The scandal of our family drama was now a matter of public record. I wasn't surprised when the gossip started. Whispers at the grocery store, pointed looks from neighbors. The once friendly community had its claws out, ready to pounce on the latest piece of juicy news. But I refused to be cowed. I walked with my head held high, refusing to give in to the shame that others expected me to feel. I was the victim, but I refused to play that role in their sordid drama. The real blow came a few days later. Tyler came to visit, his face etched with worry. "Aunt Claire, I heard my mom and Nathan are spreading rumors about you, saying you locked them in the basement out of jealousy." Anger flared within me. Jealousy? They have the audacity to twist the story? Tyler nodded, his eyes filled with anger. "They're playing the victims, saying you've gone crazy with jealousy and paranoia." I laughed, a sound devoid of humor. "Let them talk. I know the truth, and so do you. Their lies will catch up to them." But as days turned into weeks, the weight of the scandal began to take its toll. Friends distanced themselves, and even some family members questioned my actions. The isolation was suffocating. a constant reminder of the price of my revenge. In a desperate bid for some semblance of normalcy, I reached out to a divorce attorney. It was time to sever all legal ties with Nathan and reclaim my life. The attorney, a sharp-witted woman named Miss Harper, listened to my story with a mix of sympathy and professional detachment. Mrs. Montgomery, while I understand your need for a quick resolution, I must warn you, this will be a messy divorce, especially with the allegations flying around. Are you prepared for that? I nodded, determination stealing my resolve. I want to move on, Miss Harper. I want to close this chapter of my life for good. As I left her office, a plan began to form in my mind. Nathan and Rachel wanted to paint me as the villain? Fine. I would give them a performance they'd never forget. I would emerge from this scandal not as a broken, scorned wife, but as a woman reborn, stronger and more resilient than ever. The days leading up to the divorce proceedings were like navigating through a minefield. Every step I took was met with criticism and judgment from those around me. But I was resolute. I refused to let Nathan and Rachel's deceit destroy me. The day of the first hearing arrived. Dressed in my best suit, I walked into the courtroom, my head held high. Nathan was already there, looking haggard and remorseful. Rachel wasn't present, but her absence did nothing to quell the sense of betrayal that simmered within me. Mrs. Montgomery, my lawyer, Miss Harper, whispered as we took our seats. Remember, stay calm and collected. Let him dig his own grave. Nathan's lawyer was the first to speak, painting Nathan as a victim of my supposed irrational jealousy. Mrs. Montgomery's actions were driven by unfounded suspicions and jealousy. Locking my client in a basement is not only unlawful, but also speaks to her unstable state of mind. I felt my blood boil, but I remembered Miss Harper's words. I remained silent, letting them spin their tale. Then it was our turn. Miss Harper was methodical, her words sharp and precise. My client acted out of self-defense. The evidence of Mr. Montgomery's infidelity is clear, and Mrs. Montgomery's actions, while extreme, were a result of emotional distress caused by this betrayal. The judge listened intently, his expression unreadable. After what seemed like hours, he finally spoke. Given the circumstances, I believe a fair settlement is in order. Mrs. Montgomery will have full custody of their son, Ethan, and Mr. Montgomery will provide alimony and child support. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. Nathan's eyes met mine, filled with a mixture of anger and regret. "Claire, please," he began, but I cut him off. "There's nothing left to say, Nathan. You made your choice." As I walked out of the courtroom, I felt the weight of the past few months start to lift. But the battle wasn't over yet. The social fallout from the scandal continued to plague me. Friends I once considered close turned their backs, siding with Nathan and Rachel's twisted narrative. I found solace in Tyler, who had become a frequent visitor. He, too, was struggling with the backlash, especially from Rachel's side of the family. "They're calling you a monster," Tyler said one evening, anger lacing his voice. "But they don't know the truth. They don't know her like we do." I sighed, feeling a kinship with Tyler that went beyond family ties. "Let them talk, Tyler. We know the truth, and that's all that matters." But even with the legal battle won, a sense of unease lingered. Rachel was still out there, spinning her web of lies, and I knew she wouldn't go down without a fight. I needed to be vigilant, ready for whatever she had planned. As I lay in bed that night, I realized that this was far from over. The divorce was just the first step in reclaiming my life. But to truly move on, I needed to face Rachel and put an end to her manipulative games once and for all. The final chapter of my marital saga began on a crisp autumn morning. The leaves had turned a fiery orange, mirroring the burning resolve within me to confront Rachel and end this once and for all. I had arranged to meet her at a local cafe, a neutral ground where we could talk without the shadows of the past looming over us. As I waited, my mind raced with the possible outcomes of this confrontation. Rachel arrived, her demeanor a mixture of defiance and nervousness. "So you wanted to see me?" she began, her voice laced with a feigned casualness. I looked her straight in the eyes, my gaze steady. "Yes, Rachel, it's time we put an end to this," she scoffed. "Put an end? Claire, you've ruined everything. Your paranoia, your crazy accusations." I felt a surge of anger but quickly quelled it. "No, Rachel, you ruined everything. Your selfishness, your betrayal. You destroyed our family for your own desires." Rachel's facade cracked, her eyes flashing with anger. You think you're so perfect, don't you? Always playing the victim. But you're not innocent in all this. You pushed Nathan away, and I was there for him. I shook my head in disbelief. You call sleeping with my husband being there for him? You're delusional, Rachel. The conversation escalated, each word we exchanged sharper than the last. But as the argument wore on, I felt a strange sense of detachment. This was no longer about winning an argument or proving a point. This was about closure. Finally, I leaned back, my decision clear in my mind. You know what, Rachel? I'm done. I'm done letting you and Nathan dictate my life. I'm moving on, and I suggest you do the same. Rachel's face twisted into a sneer. Move on? After everything you've done? Yes, move on, I affirmed. I've been granted full custody of Ethan, and Nathan is providing alimony and child support. The divorce is final. It's over, Rachel. She was visibly shaken, her bravado crumbling. You think you've won, don't you? You think you can just walk away from this? I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. Yes, I'm walking away. From you, from Nathan, from this entire mess. I'm starting fresh, for Ethan and for myself. Rachel watched me, her eyes filled with a mixture of hatred and disbelief. But I didn't linger on her expression. I walked out of the cafe, leaving her in the past behind. In the weeks that followed, I found a new sense of peace. I focused on rebuilding my life, on being there for Ethan, who had been my rock through this entire ordeal. We moved to a new neighborhood, a fresh start away from the judging eyes and whispered rumors. I landed a new job, found new friends, and for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful about the future. The scars of the past would always be there, but they no longer defined me. As I watched Ethan play in our new backyard, laughter filling the air, I realized that this was what mattered. This was my new beginning. My chance to write a new story, one where I was no longer a victim, but a survivor, a woman reborn from the ashes of her past. And as the sun set, casting a warm glow over our new home, I knew that, despite everything, I had emerged stronger, ready to face whatever life had in store for me.
My name is Mary. I turned 35 this year on a warm summer day when birds were chirping happily. One day, I was asked to go to the president's office. The president is actually my mom. I'd accidentally called her mom instead of boss because I was surprised. She seemed annoyed by the heat and didn't even look at me when she spoke. She said she's giving the company to my sister and firing me. It was hard to believe what I heard because the sun was so bright. I probably looked really shocked. My mom, looking frustrated, finally looked at me and repeated that I'm fired because she doesn't want me around since I'm not as attractive as my sister. She said I had to leave by the end of the month. Then she went back to her work as if our conversation was over. I felt confused and hurt as I sat there, listening to the birds outside. My mom even scolded me for still being there and told me to go back to work. I walked away from the office feeling like a robot, saying excuse me as I left and closing the door behind me. Our company is pretty small, just a 2-story building, and we're in the demolition business with about 10 people working here. It's a family business, with my mom as the president, my aunt and her husband as the top managers, and my mom's cousins as other important managers, but my mom always had the most control. After I finished high school, I got a job at an accounting firm. But when I turned 25, my mom said we needed an accountant at our family business. She basically guilted me into joining, saying I shouldn't abandon my family. And when I started, I didn't just do accounting work. My mom gave me all sorts of jobs, from paperwork to sales, whenever we were short-staffed. Basically, I did a bit of everything at the company. Even though the work was tough, I tried my best not to be a burden to anyone. I worked long hours and somehow managed to keep up with everything for the past 10 years. On the other hand, my sister Lucy, who was supposed to take over the company, is 3 years younger than me at 32, and she only started working here 2 years ago. Lucy had been jumping from one job to another, always saying they weren't right for her. When she turned 30, she stopped looking for work and spent her days relaxing at home. Then, my mom decided Lucy should work at our family business and made her an executive director. Even though I've been working at the company for 10 years, I'm still just a regular employee. Everyone noticed how differently my sister and I were treated, but I wasn't surprised. My mom has always liked Lucy more, even when we were kids. She gave Lucy all the nice clothes and toys she wanted, and always said how cute she was. but I got hand-me-downs and wasn't paid much attention to. As a child, I didn't understand why my mom treated us differently. I worked hard in school and helped out at home, hoping to get her attention, but even when I got top grades, she barely noticed. At one point, I even thought about getting plastic surgery because I believed that if I looked prettier, my mom would pay more attention to me. But my aunt, who is my mom's sister, saw me feeling this way and explained why my mom ignored me so much. When I was in high school, I was told that my dad had died. But the truth was, when Lucy was born, my dad left my mom for another woman from his job. This woman was older than my mom and supposedly not as pretty, but she had a similar vibe to me. My aunt told me that my mom was too proud to admit that my dad left her for someone who wasn't as attractive as she was. She seemed kind of satisfied telling me this, like she enjoyed seeing my mom in a tough spot. My aunt wasn't particularly stunning herself. She took more after our side of the family, but she was good at her job and often used her charm to get ahead. My mom took over the family business when she was 32, after my dad left. She used her looks to attract and keep lots of clients, which really helped the business grow. Plus, there was a lot of demand for demolition work at that time because many buildings needed tearing down. So my aunt's family and my cousins couldn't really stand up to my mom. Lately, the cost of getting rid of industrial waste and moving it around has gone up, and it's been hard to balance how much it costs to demolish buildings with what we actually make. Our company isn't the only one struggling, the whole industry is having a tough time. It's been a challenge just to pay our employees every month. And now, my younger sister has joined the company as an executive director, adding to the mix. I wondered how my mom planned to pay my sister's salary, but she just said, "We'll cut your pay to cover hers. We're family, so it's natural, right?" I pointed out that even if they cut my pay, it wouldn't be enough to give my sister the salary of an executive director. But my mom didn't care. She told me it was my problem to figure out. I timidly suggested that maybe my sister should start as a regular employee. My mom gave me a harsh look and scolded me, saying, "Who do you think you're talking to? This isn't your business to interfere with." At that time, we all lived together. My sister didn't contribute anything to the household, while I paid $1,500 each month to help out. I've been helping around the house since I was young to support my busy mom, but my sister never did anything, acting like it was normal. "Hey sis, is dinner ready yet?" Lucy would ask when I was working late. When I told her to make her own food because I was busy, she'd say, "But I don't know what to cook. You're the one who knows the kitchen best, right?" I don't want to get in trouble for using it without asking like last time. She never bothered to try cooking. Instead, she used that past argument as an excuse to avoid doing anything around the house. So, I often had to rush home to cook dinner before going back to work. My mom usually didn't cook either. Even when I made meals, she'd often eat out, choosing whatever she wanted. Lately though, she was going out to eat with Lucy more, so I didn't have to cook as often. But now, we were spending more money on entertainment, which was causing new problems. My mom, who was now 63, was starting to complain more about feeling sore and the effects of drinking too much. It was around this time that I was called into the CEO's office and told, "I'm giving the company to Lucy. You, who aren't as pretty, are fired." I could understand why my mom chose Lucy to take over the company, considering her past behavior. Lucy was 32, the same age my mom was when she became the CEO. Maybe my mom thought Lucy could use her looks to get things done, just like she did. But I couldn't accept being fired because of how I look. Even if my salary went to Lucy, it didn't seem fair. When I talked to my aunt about it, she already knew Lucy was going to be the CEO, but she didn't know I was getting fired. After thinking about it, my aunt said, "I'm not sure, but it seems like Lucy doesn't like that whenever she says she'll do something at the company. Everyone says it's okay because they know Mary will help. Maybe that's part of the reason." No, it's because everyone stopped asking Lucy for help since she always does a messy job, right? Lucy was really bad at her job. She often missed deadlines, messed up phone calls, and made lots of mistakes in her work. Even though she had some experience, she didn't seem to realize how bad she was. Maybe because people always overlooked her mistakes because she was pretty, she never thought about improving. My aunt agreed, saying, "That's true. But I think Lucy sees you as a bother." She added sadly, "But I never imagined they'd fire you. Without you, the company won't be able to work properly." She seemed worried, but didn't argue with my mom, because she knew she wouldn't win. I felt disgusted knowing my aunt was related to me by blood. So basically, Both my mom and sister hate me, right? I said bitterly. My aunt didn't know what to say, so she suggested, well, your mom is terrible, but maybe you'd be better off working somewhere else with all your skills. It's a waste to stay here. Standing in the car, bathed in the red glow of the summer evening, I stared into the distance and felt a sense of relief. Maybe it was okay to let go. I turned to my aunt and said, you're right, with a big smile on my face. It was the first time I'd smiled genuinely since I started working at the company. My aunt looked a bit confused by my smile, but she returned a sad smile. As I worked on handing over documents and organizing files so that anyone could understand them, the end of the month came quickly. When I went to the CEO's office to resign on time, the sound of birds was gone, and my mom and sister were happily chatting. That sales guy definitely has a crush on you. You, that bald guy? No way. They laughed loudly, not realizing I was there. When I cleared my throat, they finally noticed me. My sister looked at me curiously and said, what's up? We don't need dinner tonight. I'm quitting today. Thanks for everything, I told them. Oh, was it today? I forgot. My sister laughed again. I felt relieved knowing I wouldn't have to see them anymore. I'm moving out too, so take care, my mom replied mechanically with no emotion. I closed the door, and from inside, I heard my sister say, now we won't have to deal with that annoying face anymore. In my heart, I whispered, just you wait, and left the company I'd been at for so long. A week later, after finishing some paperwork for school, I checked my phone and saw 14 missed calls from my mom in just 2 hours. I didn't call her back because I had a bad feeling about it. I put my phone on silent and went home after finishing my other tasks. The missed calls from my mom kept piling up, and when I checked the next morning, there were a total of 80 missed calls. The last one was after 2 a.m. But I didn't even consider calling her back. She was like a stranger to me now, and I didn't want to hear her voice at all. I even had thoughts that if I heard her voice, I might end up doing what she wanted. After all, she had controlled me for 35 years. So I ignored her calls with all my strength, trying to break free from her influence. I could have blocked her number, but I thought keeping the calls might be evidence of her behavior if something happened. At first, getting almost 100 calls a day was tough, and I hated seeing them come in. But over time, I started feeling satisfied, imagining my mom's frustration with each unanswered call. It made me realize just how badly she had treated me. The year went by like this, and eventually the calls from my mom stopped. I had no idea what was going on with her. During this time, I worked part-time while studying online to become a tax professional, and I passed all the exams. I recently got a job at a top tax consulting firm. My experience in the varied tasks I did at my mom's company helped me see the bigger picture, which was a big advantage in my new job. I was grateful for all the hard work I'd done at my old company over the past 10 years, especially now. The people at my new job are great, and we all work together well. It's a big change from my old job. When I was left to figure things out on my own, pushed around by my mom and sister, I spent countless nights researching and working alone. One day, while I was leading a fulfilling life, I had to visit a client near my mom's company. As I passed by, I noticed the windows were dirty and the plants I used to care for were withered. On my way back, I bumped into my mom coming out of her company. When she saw me, she shouted, "Ah!" and rushed towards me. Expecting her to scold me, I instinctively covered my face with my bag. But to my surprise, she spoke to me in a sweet tone, asking where I'd been and if I'd changed my phone. It seemed like she hadn't even considered that I might not want to talk to her because I disliked her. Given everything she'd done to me, I couldn't help but wonder about her thought process. Ignoring my confusion, she continued, "Oh, but it's a good thing I saw you. Look at the state of this company. It's awful, isn't it? You can start working here again from tomorrow. I'm not mad, you know. So I forgive you for leaving a year ago. Please come back to work tomorrow." It took me a moment to process what my mom had just said. Did she only see me as a little child who adored her? Mom, I'm already working at another company, and I'm happy there, I said hesitantly. But instead of understanding, her face twisted into anger, and she yelled, "What? You're telling me you're working somewhere else while our company is struggling? I don't care about other companies, you belong to me, got it?" Causing a scene in the street. "Wait a minute, you're the one who fired me, remember? What about Lucy? What happened to her?" I asked. My mom snorted and said, "Oh, Lucy. I thought she'd be useful, but she got caught having affairs with 3 men from our main client. Our business with them ended quickly. I tried putting her in clerical work, but she couldn't even clean properly and was useless at accounting. Because of her, we couldn't even hire someone else. After venting her frustrations, my mom turned to me with a grin. "That's why it's your turn, Mary. Ever since you left, the office has been a mess. I need you to take responsibility." I had made a thorough handover manual before leaving and explained everything to Lucy. But I doubted Lucy had even looked at it, and I was sure my mom hadn't heard anything about it either. And even if she did, she'd probably pretend to forget. I couldn't understand why they fired me and then expected me to clean up their mess. This was typical of these women. They acted tough, blamed others, and made others clean up after them. It was their usual trick. I bit my lip, thinking of the kind people I worked with now, and I swore to myself that I wouldn't succumb to this pressure anymore. "You're the one who fired me, right?" I said to my mom, my tone changing. "And you fired me because I'm not pretty, isn't that right?" A crowd had gathered around us, intrigued by our argument. My mom seemed startled by my sudden assertiveness. "Did I say that? Are you sure you didn't misunderstand?" she stammered, aware of the onlookers. "No, I heard it loud and clear. You're giving the company to my beautiful sister and firing me, the ugly one," I declared boldly. "I don't get it. I've been working hard at the company for 10 years, but you suddenly decide to give the company to my sister, who hardly does any work, after just 2 years. Your judgment is questionable," I stated firmly. The crowd started to murmur in response. "Can that really happen? That's not fair. Are they even related? Is she her own mother?" Some even started filming us, but I was too angry to care. As my mom began to sweat and pale under the accusing stares, she panicked. "Mary, you're misunderstanding." "Let's go inside," she urged. "Misunderstanding? What's there to misunderstand? If you didn't say it, just say it clearly," I retorted. When my mom stayed silent, the people around us started saying, "She's silent, so it must be true." That's unbelievable. Then something snapped in my mom. She started yelling, "Shut up. It's all your fault for being ugly and miserable. Ugly people should know their place and obey what beautiful people say. That's all you're good for." People around us were shocked by my mom's outrageous behavior and quickly started uploading their videos. The headlines read, "Ugly woman obeys beautiful woman." The video went viral, reaching my mom's clients, who promptly cut ties with her. It turned out that in the year after I left the company, they were involved in shady activities like fraud and tampering with accounting books. When the video spread, everyone was eager to distance themselves. As a result, the company went bankrupt. My mom and sister, now without income, came to my apartment, but I didn't let them in. In the end, they moved to a rundown apartment without a bath, living in fear of creditors. My sister, always trying to take it easy by flirting with male coworkers, had trouble keeping part-time jobs because her coworkers didn't like her. Meanwhile, everyone knew about the viral video, so my mom was also shunned by her coworkers. It seems she's now silently working by herself. Meanwhile, I found a boyfriend at my new workplace. He's not conventionally handsome, but he appreciates my hard work and sincerity. We're planning to get married soon. I'm genuinely happy knowing that my efforts have paid off.
Karen's dad is really wealthy. When he dies, Karen will get a lot of money. I think she might get around $100 million. Isn't that amazing? I'm so excited. When Karen gets her money, I hope she'll take me on a vacation. That would be so nice. Maybe I'll even ask her to buy me a car. James, what about you? I've always dreamed of getting a really fancy gaming computer. I wonder if Karen would buy me one. As they chatted excitedly, they didn't notice the look on my face. On the other side of the door, I held onto my purse tightly. My name is Karen. I met my husband James at a social club for people who work. We became friends quickly because we both liked the same things. We were happy together every day. One day, I got a surprising call from my mom. She said, "Karen, your dad has collapsed." What? My dad was always cheerful, cracking dad jokes, and he seemed healthy. He ran his own company smoothly. It was hard to believe he collapsed. Worried about him, I left home right away and took the next train to the hospital my mom mentioned. My dad was incredibly kind. Even with his busy schedule, He always made time to play with my brother and me. He was a wonderful father who loved carrying us on his shoulders. I remember how emotional he got when I read a letter to my parents at my wedding to James. It's a memory I'll never forget. So hearing that such a loving man collapsed was hard to believe. When I got to the hospital where my mom was waiting, she turned to me. "Mom, how's Dad? Is he okay? Karen, please stay calm and listen." My mom looked at my dad lying on the bed with his eyes closed as she explained. Dad had collapsed suddenly at work and was rushed to the hospital. Despite many tests, they couldn't find anything wrong, and they didn't know why he got sick. More tests might find out what's wrong, but they could also make Dad feel worse, my mom said. I decided to stop the tests. It looks like your dad will have paralysis on one side of his body, so he's going to need a lot of care. Yeah, that's right. Even though she seemed worried, my mom stayed calm. My mom has decided to take care of Dad. I could feel my mom's strength, but I was also really sad that my dad wouldn't be the same. Just then, my brother burst into the room. "How's Dad?" he asked, out of breath. Mom explained Dad's condition to him, just like she did to me. "Mom, you can't take care of him alone. I'm nearby. I'll help." "Thank you, but focus on your own life. You have your own family to take care of." My brother agreed, saying, "I understand." My brother got married before me and now has a 4-year-old daughter. I'm the one with more free time since I don't have kids yet, but it takes me an hour by train to get home. Even though I'm far away and it'll take time, I won't leave everything to you and Mom. If anything changes with Dad, tell me right away. "Karen, did you tell John you're here?" My brother suddenly asked, reminding me that I had left the house without letting John know. Seeing my worried expression, my brother said, "You should call him. John must be worried." So I hurried out of the hospital room to find a quiet spot to call him. When John answered, he asked, "Karen, where are you?" I was so worried. Hearing John's voice calmed me, but I couldn't hold back my tears as I explained that my dad had collapsed and needed care. John was shocked. "Your lively dad." But he spoke gently to comfort me. I felt grateful to have married him. When I told him I was coming home, he said softly, "I'll make dinner. Just be careful on your way home." It seemed Dad would stay in the hospital tonight. My mom and brother were also heading home, so I decided to go home too. When I got home, John had prepared my favorite meal. "It must have been tough. Have something you love to cheer up," he said, pulling out a chair for me. His kindness brought tears to my eyes. John usually stays calm, but he's incredibly caring when I'm feeling down, which always touches me. After thanking him for his comfort, I went to bed early that day. The next morning, feeling a bit better, I told John that I wanted to help take care of my dad sometimes, and he agreed happily. Also, it turned out that John had informed his parents about my dad's condition, and they offered to help with chores while I was away. I was surprised and grateful to receive such support from John's family to assist with my dad's care. When I called to thank them, John's mom chuckled and said, "Your dad is like family to us. You don't need to worry about a thing." When John's parents arrived at our house with smiles on their faces, asking how they could help with chores, I was surprised. They, like John, are usually calm and composed. Before I got married, I thought they were a bit distant, but maybe I misunderstood them. I kept thanking my husband James and my in-laws for their support and for taking care of my dad. My dad used to talk a lot, but after the paralysis on his left side, he couldn't speak well. Luckily, he could still write since he was right-handed. He communicated with us by writing on a whiteboard. Even though he was mostly in bed, he lifted our spirits by drawing funny pictures and writing dad jokes. My brother also came to help, but it was mostly my sister-in-law who assisted. With her experience as a caregiver, she patiently taught my mom and me how to help Dad. We were worried that my sister-in-law might not want to take care of Dad since he's not her blood relative, but she didn't mind at all. She happily said, "Your dad has made me laugh so much. Now it's my turn to make him smile." Seeing her enthusiasm made me realize that my brother had married an amazing person. My brother may have a great spouse, but I'm not falling behind when it comes to having an amazing one myself. My whole in-law family supports me in taking care of my dad. Every time I go to help him, they ask how he's doing, and I'm really thankful for their care. But then I realized it might all be a misunderstanding, just by chance. One day, I left the house to go see my dad, but when I got to the station, I realized I forgot my wallet. Feeling annoyed with myself, I went back home. Usually, when I went to help my dad, my in-laws would pitch in with chores, so I thought they'd find it funny that I forgot my wallet. I went inside, got my wallet from my room, and went back to the front door. That's when I overheard a conversation between James and my in-laws in the living room. So, Karen's dad isn't going to pass away anytime soon, huh? I'm getting tired of waiting. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I stopped in my tracks, wondering if I misheard. Quietly, I tiptoed closer to the living room door and pressed my ear against it, listening carefully. Anyway, how much do you think Karen will inherit when her dad passes away? It doesn't make sense for us to be nice to her unless we get a big share. Her dad is really rich. She's probably going to get more than 100 million, right? Wow, that's amazing. I can't wait. When her dad passes, I hope Karen takes me on a vacation. That'd be nice. Maybe I'll ask her to buy me a car. James, what do you want? Their conversation filled the room with excitement. On my side of the door, they probably had no clue about the expression on my face. I gripped my wallet tightly, feeling a mix of anger, frustration, and sadness. Careful not to make a sound, I quietly left the house, my mind swirling with emotions. I headed straight to my parents' place. If I thought my in-laws were being unusually kind, now I realized it was all for the sake of money. My dad's inheritance was significant, but I couldn't bear the thought that my in-laws were eagerly waiting for his demise. Unable to clear my mind, I sat on a bench at the local station near my parents' house. The echoes of James and his family's laughter replayed in my head. I can't forgive them. Never. They're all foolish, just laughing away. I made a silent vow to seek revenge on James and my in-laws, who only saw dollar signs when they looked at my loving father. Despite hearing their greedy conversation, I played along, pretending I hadn't heard a thing whenever they asked about my father's health. I maintained my polite demeanor and thanked them as usual. I decided to take advantage of James and my money-hungry in-laws as much as possible. I spent more time caring for my father and dumped household chores on them without hesitation. My in-laws, eager for their share of the inheritance, gladly complied with my requests. I noticed their faces tense up sometimes, but I paid it no mind. About a year later, my father's condition worsened. Though the doctor assured me it wasn't urgent, I felt relieved. However, I informed James and my in-laws that my father's condition might take a turn for the worse soon. It seemed like the news they had been waiting for, evident from their barely concealed grins. With a calm demeanor, I handed them divorce papers and said, "Thank you for all you've done. Please, let's get a divorce." James and my in-laws were stunned, but I continued with the lines I had prepared. "So James, mother-in-law, and father-in-law, you were all after my father's inheritance, weren't you?" I heard everything. Mother-in-law wanted a vacation, father-in-law wanted a new car, and James, you wanted a gaming computer, didn't you? I can't stay with people who seem to be waiting for my father to die. The looks on your faces just now were truly ugly. It's like I could see your greedy thoughts of getting money when my father passes away. As I spoke, my expressionless face seemed to frighten them. My in-laws were frozen, and James, holding the divorce papers, was in shock, opening and closing his mouth. I had no reason to stay in that house anymore. "You can send the divorce papers by mail, but if you don't, I'll get a lawyer. Please do it within a week," I told James before getting up. I grabbed the luggage I had prepared earlier and left our home. During the train ride back to my parents' house, I felt the gentle sway of the seat. When I arrived, my parents were there waiting for me. Since I had already told my mom about what happened, she hugged me tightly and said, "You did the right thing. It was the first time I cried in my mom's arms like that since I became an adult. The next day, James and my in-laws came to my parents' house. I decided to stay hidden and see what would happen. When my mom opened the door, James and my in-laws were kneeling outside. "We're here to apologize to Karen. There seems to have been a misunderstanding. Please let us apologize properly," they pleaded. "Misunderstanding? My daughter overheard your conversation. It seems you've been eyeing my husband's inheritance. I don't want to have anything to do with people like that." My mom sharply dismissed them. James persisted, pleading to see me again. "I can't let you see her because she doesn't want to. What she wants isn't your apologies, but for you to fill out the divorce papers. Have you done it? Hand them over quickly," my mom insisted. "Please just give me one more chance," James begged, but then the sound of a cane tapping caught everyone's attention from deep within the house. We all turned to see my father, leaning on his cane with the help of my sister-in-law. James looked shocked to see my father in person for the first time. With a whiteboard in his hand, my father had a message for James. It read, "I won't let my daughter stay with someone who can't make her happy. Divorce her immediately as she wishes." The message, written strongly, seemed to hit James and my in-laws harder than anyone else's words. They finally realized there was no point in arguing further. Slowly, James and my in-laws stood up. "I filled out the divorce papers. Here they are," James said, handing the papers to my mother. He promised to let me know once he filed them with the city hall. And then my mother sent him and my in-laws away. Emerging from my hiding spot, I said, "Thank you, Mom and Dad." My mother smiled gently while my father chuckled and wrote a message on the whiteboard. "A father's duty is to protect his daughter until the end." Seeing those words, I couldn't help but cry. Despite his paralysis, my father remained the same kind and caring person. I had initially thought he had changed, but he proved me wrong. He was still the dependable father who always put me first. "Dad, I hope you live a long time," I told him tearfully, and he responded with a grin. Since then, James has returned to his parents' house and seems to be living quietly. As for me, I've adjusted to taking care of my father while managing work. It's a busy life. But remembering how my father always made time for us when we were young, my brother and I never feel burdened by caring for him. Despite being half bedridden and losing weight, my father's laughter and love for dad jokes remain unchanged. My sister-in-law also finds joy in caring for him, and we're able to lead a peaceful life together.
My sister, who took John away from me, said, "I'll be happy enough for both of us." She sent me an invitation to her wedding with John, trying to make me jealous. But I told Mom, "We'll go anyway. We'll make sure to make it special." Usually my parents are nice and hardly ever get mad, but they'd had enough of my sister's bad behavior. We went to the wedding with determined smiles, but it turned out to be a disaster, not a happy occasion. I'm Hannah Turner, 24 years old, and I draw pictures for a living. I got married recently, not even a year ago, and my relationship with my husband, John, is strong. We met through a friend and quickly started dating. He proposed to me at a restaurant with a beautiful view at night. Our wedding was full of happiness, surrounded by family and friends. One day, I noticed that my husband John forgot his phone in the living room. I picked it up and brought it to him, saying, "John, you forgot your phone." He seemed a bit nervous as he took it, thanking me quickly before rushing out the door. His sudden rush left me feeling uneasy, and that feeling marked the beginning of my suspicions. After that day, John started carrying his phone with him everywhere, even at home. I found it strange, but I couldn't imagine John would cheat on me, right? We'd been getting along fine without any major problems, so I tried to convince myself that everything was okay. However, my trust didn't last long. While I was hanging up laundry, I saw a notification on my own phone. It was an email from an unfamiliar address. "Hey, long time no see. How have you been?" It seemed like it could be from someone I knew, but I heard about scams where people pretend to be friends, so I decided to ignore it. But then another message came through. "Hey, don't ignore me. I can see you read it. Ignoring your sister? That's just like you, always so mean." Right after I closed my phone, it rang, and it was another message from the same unknown sender, calling me their sister. Indeed, I do have a sister named Sally, but she's known for causing trouble in various ways. Sally, my sister, had a history of causing trouble, especially with money. She often borrowed money from friends and then disappeared without paying them back, leaving my parents and me to deal with the fallout. Because she was their daughter, my parents always ended up paying off her debts. On top of that, Sally had a habit of making complaints over the smallest things. She'd yell and be rude, even making people kneel down to apologize to her. This made her a difficult customer to deal with. Another problem was Sally's love life. She had a thing for men who were already in relationships, whether they were friends or family. She didn't care about causing tension between people, she just pursued what she wanted. Because of her behavior, I had cut ties with Sally since she left home, so when I received a message with the word sister on my phone, I felt uneasy. I debated whether to respond, but I ultimately decided to ignore it. Whether it was really Sally or someone pretending to be her, I didn't want to get involved. However, the messages kept coming until I finally opened one to block the sender. What I saw shocked me to my core. It was a message from Sally, saying that John was now hers and that I should hurry up and divorce him. There was even a photo of John and Sally together as proof. I didn't need any more confirmation, I knew it was true. I sat down, feeling dizzy with shock and disbelief. After Sally's message, John never came back home. Instead, all I got was a set of divorce papers filled out by him. My attempts to reach John were met with silence. Losing my husband in such a sudden way left me feeling devastated, angry, and emotionally fragile. Why, John? I cried for days. Once I had calmed down a bit, I decided to reach out to Sally. What do you want? Let me speak to John. You've been ignoring me for so long, and now you contact me without even saying hello or apologizing. What's your intention? I demanded. Excuse me? You should be the one apologizing. Just send John back home for now. No way. He doesn't want to come back. He says he loves me more than he ever loved you. And why should I apologize? It's your fault for not being able to keep him. No matter what I said, Sally wouldn't listen. I was already feeling terrible mentally, too exhausted to worry or think anymore. I realized it was pointless to keep arguing. Holding on would only make things worse. You know, if you're going to be angry at someone, be angry at your own lack of charm, loser. After that conversation, I shut off my phone. I was done dealing with Sally and had lost all affection for John, who had chosen her. Before I knew it, I had signed the divorce papers, and just like that, my once happy marriage was over. My life became a mess after that. Maybe because of the emotional damage, I struggled to eat and felt more tired than usual. I looked so worn out that my coworkers started to worry. Despite trying to reassure them with a smile, it felt like my body and mind were reaching their limits. Eventually, I collapsed at work and woke up in the emergency room. My parents and a close coworker were there beside me. Hannah. Can you recognize me, Hannah? Their voices brought me back to reality. Looking around, I realized I was in hospital, remembering what had happened. Oh, I collapsed, didn't I? My dad sighed with relief. We were so worried when the hospital called. Are you working too hard? He asked, but deep down, I knew it was the stress from John and Sally. Maybe, I muttered, and my mom quickly called for a nurse to get a doctor. After a checkup, they decided to keep me in the hospital for observation. Are you eating properly? Getting enough rest? My dad bombarded me with questions, clearly worried. I assured him I was okay. My mom asked him to buy some drinks and snacks for me, and he agreed, leaving the room. Hey Hannah, something's not right, is it? Natalie said. You've seemed really tired lately, and this is so unlike you. They say women have strong intuition, and Natalie seemed to have it. I sighed and opened up to them about everything that had been happening. I ended up crying while explaining, realizing I had reached my breaking point without even realizing it. I thought I could handle it all, but it turns out I didn't understand myself as well as I thought. As I tried to laugh it off, my mom squeezed my hand tightly. I had no idea all of this was going on. Why didn't you tell us sooner? This is the first time I'm hearing about the divorce. I'm sorry to say this in front of you, Mom, but is Sally out of her mind? I can't believe it. Both of them expressed their anger towards Sally, and I could tell they were genuinely worried about me. I didn't want to cause trouble or worry anyone, so I tried to downplay the situation. I felt embarrassed, and part of me believed what Sally had said might be true. Maybe it was my fault for not being more appealing. That's nonsense. What are you talking about? It's clear that Sally and your ex are the ones in the wrong here. Nayeli is right. You didn't do anything wrong. To think you were suffering all alone, I'm so sorry. Both of them looked like they were on the verge of tears. I regretted not relying on the people around me more. My mom suggested that I come back home for a while considering my mental and physical state, and after the doctor also recommended rest, Nayeli took care of the paperwork at work with my medical certificate. When my dad returned with drinks and heard about me resting at home, he immediately agreed that it was a good idea. Nayeli managed to explain everything to my workplace and HR assured me, "You've got plenty of paid time off saved up, so take your time off to rest." After thanking Nayeli, she reassured me that she'd be there for me and I should lean on her whenever I needed. Over the next few days, I stayed at my parents' house. Nayeli came to visit occasionally, and I could feel my mind and body gradually recovering. I realized that keeping everything bottled up inside wasn't healthy. Today, as Natalie and I were enjoying cake prepared by my mom, my phone rang, piquing my curiosity. I opened it, and my heart raced. "Hey there, how are you doing? Thought you might be wondering about us, so I decided to reach out." It was Sally, who I hadn't spoken to since the fallout. I regretted letting my guard down and checking my phone. Nayeli noticed the change in my expression. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" Yeah, I'm fine," I replied, but it was clear something was off. Natalie asked if she could see my phone. I didn't want to worry her, but I had just realized that bottling things up wasn't good. So, I nodded and handed her my phone. Natalie looked puzzled as she read the message. "What's this? Is she picking a fight? This is Sally, right?" I nodded in response and Natalie closed the phone. "Just ignore it. Actually, let's block her." "No point in dealing with someone like this," she suggested, and I agreed. Opening my phone to block Sally just then, another message from Sally came in. "We've been living together smoothly since then, and guess what? I got pregnant." You might be thinking already, but nope. John and I started our relationship 6 months ago. The word pregnant made time stop for me. We had been trying to conceive during our marriage. "It would be great if we could be blessed with our baby soon," we used to say. Reading this message hurt deeply. Tears started flowing and Natalie, seeing me cry, took the phone from my hand. After reading the message, she yelled, "What? I can't believe this. I'm so mad I could explode. We should sue them." Suing was something I had considered when I first received the message, but now, I didn't have the energy or will to pursue it. "I just don't want to deal with this anymore," I muttered, and Natalie calmed down. "Sorry, I got too emotional." "You're right. It's best not to get involved." Natalie's comforting back rub felt so kind, and I cried a bit more. Then my mom came into the living room, having seen what happened. "Hey Hannah, actually, I haven't told your dad about this yet." I understood what that meant. Knowing this would infuriate my dad. "But I think it's time we told him." My mom's solemn words struck me deeply. I took a moment to think. "I also believe it's time to talk about it. This is just too much," I concluded. Natalie's words convinced me too. So I decided to let my mom talk to him. My mom said she would talk about it, so I decided to leave it to her. After Natalie went home and it got dark, my dad came back from work. He said it smelled good in the house and asked what was for dinner. I welcomed him home, and he seemed happier since I returned. Mom said Dad's mood had improved, and she was glad I was back. Her words made me really happy, knowing I had a place where I felt calm. But today, Mom looked serious when she talked to Dad. She said they needed to discuss something important, and Dad understood, becoming serious too. Then Dad mentioned it was about me, and I could see kindness in his eyes, which almost made me cry. After explaining everything to Dad, he seemed calm but a bit angry. He told me not to block Sally yet, even though I didn't have to read her messages. He must have had his reasons. Mom usually followed Dad's advice in situations like this. Dad also suggested letting Natalie know about it. I understood and agreed. Both Mom and Dad reassured me that everything would be okay and that they were here for me, along with Natalie. Their kind words and smiles made me feel so relieved and happy that I ended up crying. Seeing this, both my parents laughed, and my heart felt warm. That night, I told Natalie everything, and she said, "It's wonderful you have such supportive parents, and remember, you've got me too." I gazed at the stars, feeling comforted. After talking it over more, I decided to move back home. That meant going back to my parents' place since it's close enough to commute to work from there. Daily thought it would be better for my mental well-being to be away from a house full of painful memories. Since I was the one on the rental contract, I handled canceling it and sent John's stuff to his parents' house. On moving day, I sorted out mail forwarding at the post office and completed the move smoothly. I bid farewell to the landlord with a smile, leaving on good terms. Back at my parents' place, I settled back in and returned to work. My coworkers had been concerned, but now I could genuinely tell them I was okay with a smile. My boss reminded me not to push myself too hard, which made me appreciate my workplace even more. A few months later, I returned home. When I got there, my mom had a serious look on her face. She said we needed to talk and asked me to come to the living room after changing. I sensed something was wrong from her expression. After changing, I went to the living room where my parents sat, looking puzzled over a letter. I sat down in front of them, and they showed me the letter. It was an invitation to a wedding, but what could be the problem with it? I asked if I could see it, and my dad said yes. When I looked at it, I saw it was from Sally and John. I was shocked. What? I couldn't believe it. You filed a forwarding address because you moved, right? My dad asked. Yes, that's right. No wonder both my parents looked worried, but surprisingly, I felt calm. If this had happened before, I would have been really shocked, but now, I just felt disgusted. Are you okay? My mom asked, concerned. Dad was also watching me. Somehow, I'm better than I expected. I just feel disgusted. I wonder how far they want to go to insult me, right? Even if she's my daughter. This is too much for me to handle, I said. I'm glad Hannah isn't as shocked as we thought, but this is still unacceptable. I could see my parents were angry for my sake. I'm grateful for my parents who are standing up for me. The invitation was addressed to me. Do I have to go? I asked, feeling uncertain, and my parents looked at me with determination. Mom and I will go. We'll show them what hell looks like. It was unsettling to see my usually gentle parents so angry. But the invitation is addressed to me, I pointed out. Well, we're the parents of the bride. It would be rude not to attend, right? My dad reasoned. Exactly. It's our daughter's wedding. We're looking forward to it, Mom said with a smile, but her eyes didn't match her expression, making me nervous. Dad brushed off my concerns and kept getting ready. I hope it's okay, he said, ignoring me. I heard a car pulling up, so I went to check if they had called a taxi. But instead, I found Natalie stepping out of a familiar car. Natalie, what are you doing here? I asked in surprise as I opened the door. She looked stunning in her party dress. Good morning. Are your dad and mom ready? She asked, ignoring my question. Wait, am I attending the wedding too? I was shocked by her statement. When my parents came out, I asked them what was going on. It turned out that one of John's relatives was a friend of Natalie's. Upon hearing about the situation, she was invited to attend as his relative's girlfriend. My parents didn't object. In fact, they seemed excited about going together. As I pondered what they were up to, Natalie said, I can't just sit back after what happened to Hannah. You get it, right? Despite feeling anxious, I agreed. Then my parents and Natalie left together for the venue in one car. I thought about joining them, but Natalie seemed to sense my hesitation and said, if you want to see, I can show you through a video call. So I stayed home and trusted them. But my curiosity got the best of me, and I reached out to Natalie for a video call. When they arrived at the venue, my parents and Natalie headed to the reception. Natalie was on the guest list, thanks to John's relatives' arrangement, but my parents weren't listed since they weren't officially invited. The receptionist went to check their names, and that's when Sally showed up. Sally was surprised to see my parents and couldn't hide her confusion. Why are you here? She asked. Well, we're the parents. It's only natural for us to come, my parents replied. There seems to be a mistake. We didn't receive an invitation, they explained, which made Sally force a smile. The invitation was actually meant for Hannah. Yes, we were surprised when Hannah told us about it. We had no idea about the wedding. Since Hannah couldn't make it today due to work, we came instead. It's fine to invite Hannah, but you should have sent one to us too. It wouldn't look good without the bride's parents, right? My dad pointed out, mentioning the lack of invitation twice. Though I couldn't see my parents' expressions through Natalie's video call, I could picture the scene in my mind. Yes, I'm your daughter after all. Of course, you'd be happy. Sally seemed to genuinely believe my parents came for her sake. I thought she was delusional, I muttered to myself. Then John appeared. He turned pale at the sight of my parents. Relax, John. They came to celebrate with us. They must really love me, especially since Hannah is like that. Sally reassured John, who seemed relieved and greeted my parents with a smile. John's parents also joined in, and the atmosphere became friendly and warm. Seeing my former in-laws chatting happily, a memory of being fondly cared for by them stings a bit. I wondered if they were only nice to me because I was their son's wife, which was a bit shocking. Maybe it was indeed the right decision not to go, I murmured. Then the scene shifted to the ceremony and then to the reception. At the reception, Sally and John made a happy entrance. Natalie occasionally asked me if I was okay, but surprisingly I was fine, responding, "I'm okay." More than anything, I was worried about my phone's battery, but she reassured me she had a portable charger, well prepared indeed. When it was time to read the letter of gratitude to the parents, Sally started panicking because she hadn't expected her parents to come. Seeing this, my parents asked the MC for the microphone. Today, we weren't actually supposed to come, so it's understandable that Sally wasn't prepared. As a surprise from us to you, we'd like to convey a message to our daughter Sally, my dad announced. The venue erupted in applause. Sally seemed relieved by the save and smirked, clapping exaggeratedly. "Dad, I'm so happy." Her exaggerated gratitude was annoying. I kept watching, feeling uneasy. Then my dad did something unbelievable with a smile. "Our surprise from us to you is this," he announced, and suddenly the doors of the reception hall opened, revealing several men standing there, all looking outraged. I watched the scene unfold, wondering what would happen next. Sally turned pale at the sight of them. Our Sally is so charming that she has received affection from many men. The kind Sally has responded to all these feelings, making her a pride and joy. And today, these gentlemen wanted to give us a prize, so we brought them here, my dad initiated, leading to the men storming the stage, expressing their anger. Sally tried to escape but was confronted with accusations like, "What do you mean you're marrying someone else? How much do you think I've spent on you? Pay back the money you borrowed." Sally turned pale and was nearly in tears watching this. Natalie coolly commented, "Wow," while I was stunned. John, confronting Sally with the "what's going on?" found her too shocked and flustered to respond. Then my mom grabbed the microphone and started talking. "Guess what? We have another surprise. As my husband mentioned earlier, our daughter Sally is really popular, even with other women." When Mom said this, a bunch of women in the crowd stood up. We invited those who wanted to meet Sally. After Mom spoke, the women went over to Sally. Suddenly, someone else grabbed the microphone and shouted, "You stole my man, and now you're trying to act all happy. Give me money for cheating with my husband. You disappeared as soon as I lent you money. Pay me back." Everything got chaotic. The reception room went from noisy to really chaotic. I bet the other guests were shocked, but they seemed more disgusted than surprised. It was scary to see my parents smiling through all this madness, and I realized this was the kind of reputation my sister had. Amidst all the chaos, someone else grabbed the microphone. "Sally, it's really nice to see such a lovely person becoming our son's wife." Surprisingly, it was my ex-mother-in-law who spoke up unexpectedly. I was puzzled, wondering what she meant. She went on. "It might not be as grand as the surprise Sally's parents prepared, but we also have something special for you." John seemed shocked by his mother's words. "What do you mean, Mom? Can't you see what's happening?" But his attempt to calm things down was ignored by my ex-father-in-law, who took hold of the microphone. "First, we want to thank Sally's parents for their thoughtful surprise. I happen to own a business, and we decided to remove John from his expected position as my successor. That's our surprise for you." "What? What's going on?" Sally and John were shocked. I remembered hearing about John being prepared to take over his dad's business during their marriage, so his dad's announcement was surprising. "What are you saying, Dad? You've made your own choices, cheated by your own will, divorced by your own will, and remarried by your own will. Someone who can make such commendable decisions should start your own business rather than take over mine. Don't decide on your own. You said I was the successor." John looked panicked. "We're serious. You're already doing great on your own. Use your judgment to live your life from now on. With Sally by your side," his dad replied. "Exactly, I couldn't be prouder of having a son who can make such independent decisions." I was stunned. My ex-in-laws seemed to be laughing along with my parents, but their eyes didn't match their smiles. They seemed pretty angry. Natalie found the situation amusing. They deserve it. I can barely keep from laughing. I'm just speechless, I said, and Natalie caught me up on what had happened while I was away. My ex-in-laws came to apologize. They truly considered me and my parents as part of their family. They had teamed up with my parents to plan this surprise retaliation. Natalie had been keeping in touch with my parents and had also heard the story from John's relatives, so she knew everything. Hearing this brought tears to my eyes, realizing I had so many people supporting me. You're not alone, Hannah. There are so many people who care about you, Natalie said, trying to hold back her own tears. How could we stay silent when someone we care about is hurting? Yeah, I cried, unable to speak properly, just nodding. Thank you, I managed to say finally. I saw my parents and ex-in-laws smiling kindly at me through the screen. Meanwhile, chaos continued at the venue, with the staff trying to calm down the disastrous situation. Then, a man stood up and made his way toward the stage. He stood in front of John, who then collapsed to his knees. After saying something to John, the man returned to his seat. Hey, what did that man say? I couldn't quite make it out from this far away unless he used a microphone. Maybe I should go ask him directly, Natalie suggested and headed toward the man with her phone. Excuse me, she said as she approached, and the man turned around. I was surprised. Uncle? It was indeed my dad's brother, my uncle. Natalie showed him the screen, and upon seeing me, my uncle looked surprised and very happy. Hannah, are you okay? I heard about what happened today from your dad. It must have been tough. Thanks for worrying about me, but I'm fine. By the way, what did you say to John just now? I told him that since I run this hotel, I'll be seeking compensation for the damages. The reception hall is a mess because of the bride and groom, my uncle explained. Both Natalie and I understood upon hearing his words. That's why John looked so pale. After chatting with my uncle for a while, I felt a bit more hopeful. Trying to spot Sally through the camera was tough because of the crowd surrounding her. This wedding had turned into anything but a celebration. Looking around, I noticed many guests leaving, including some of John's colleagues I recognized, who seemed puzzled as they left. I thought to myself, well, that makes sense, feeling somewhat relieved. The wedding ended in disaster, with Sally and John looking worn out and pale by the end. And now, the bride and groom will leave, the MC announced. But by then, most of the guests had already departed, and only our parents, former in-laws, Natalie, and a few of John's relatives were left to applaud. When my parents came back home, I went up to greet them, and to my surprise, Natalie and John's parents were with them. I was a bit shocked but bowed to my former in-laws. I'm sorry for not keeping in touch. I regret how our marriage ended despite your kindness. I apologized, feeling guilty for not reaching out to them after the divorce. My former in-laws, with tears in their eyes, placed their hands on my shoulders. We should be the ones apologizing, they said. But I insisted it wasn't necessary and thanked them for their care during the marriage. After that, we all sat down for tea and had a pleasant chat, expressing gratitude for the wedding events and parting on good terms. I felt like I finally had closure and felt rejuvenated. A few days later, I received a message from Sally on my phone during work. I had forgotten to block her, but when I checked, it was a barrage of complaints. You ruined our wedding. Take responsibility. Did you tell our parents? Are you jealous? Stop blaming me for your unhappiness, loser. Sally's message flashed on my phone. I sighed and turned to Natalie at the next desk. Can I still claim alimony for the affair? She's practically giving me all the evidence herself, right? Fed up with it all, I decided to hire a lawyer to claim alimony. I saved all the messages and images Sally sent and replied to her. Thanks for providing evidence of the affair. A lawyer will be contacting you, so please stop contacting me directly. Sally freaked out. A lawyer? What are you doing? Stop it. She began deleting the messages and images she'd sent. When I told her that I had saved all the evidence, she panicked even more and started apologizing. Sorry, it was all lies. I'll leave Jan alone now that he's not going to be the CEO, and I won't say anything mean anymore. Please don't make me pay alimony, I already have debts. That's not my problem. I don't want Jan, and do whatever you want. Actually, maybe it's good you took him. I don't need a man who cheats. And in the end, you protected me. Thanks, sis, I replied before cutting off contact. After blocking Sally, she tried reaching out from different accounts, but I blocked those too. I quickly consulted with the lawyer I was referred to, and they acted swiftly upon receiving the evidence. Soon after, I started getting messages from John. It seemed things weren't going well with Sally. He sent me creepy messages like a lovesick Romeo, which I ignored and blocked. When he tried to contact me through the house, my parents handled it. Apparently, he got scared off by them, and hasn't reached out since. Later, the lawyer informed me that John and Sally had agreed to pay the alimony. They tried to resist using Sally's usual complaint tactics, but that didn't work on a lawyer. Realizing they had no chance, they gave in. John, who was initially resistant, looked defeated and pale after learning Sally had provided plenty of evidence against him. Despite feeling bitter about being harassed by such immature individuals, I'm now just thankful for the many people who stood by me. Sally and John eventually got divorced. Sally, with no one else to turn to, contacted our house once, but my parents issued a statement of estrangement. She hung up the phone crying. John, rumored about the wedding at work, found it uncomfortable and ended up resigning. Unable to go back home, he's now getting by with part-time jobs. Meanwhile, I received a promotion at work because of my excellent performance. I also started a relationship with someone I met in my new department. Thinking ahead, Natalie also clicked with one of John's relatives, and we often share our love stories. Next month, as a celebration, my parents, Natalie, and even my former in-laws are planning a trip to the hot springs together. Despite hitting rock bottom, I feel happier than ever before. My name is Lisa. I'm 35 years old and I work part-time. I live with my husband Mark and our daughter Emma. Mark works in an office, and Emma goes to first grade. We bought an old house and we still owe money for it. When Emma started school, I got a part-time job to help pay for the house. Mark's older sister Nancy got married before us. She lives with her dad, Mark's dad, in their family home. Nancy thinks she should have the house because she got married first. She says she'll take care of their dad, so she should get the house. Nancy's mom had already passed away when she got married, so she didn't need to take care of her dad at the time. The house where Mark's parents live is really big, and I remember being surprised when I saw it before we got married. It had a fancy gate and a lot of land around it, which made me wonder if Mark's parents were rich. When Mark and I were dating, he didn't seem very wealthy, so seeing his parents' big house was a shock. Mark said his family used to be rich, but they lost money over the years. He joked that even though his grandparents' house was big, it was old and not very comfortable to live in. He said it was amazing that his parents' house with its big piece of land was still in a nice neighborhood. I understand why Nancy, Mark's sister, wants to keep the house for herself. She kicked Mark out of the house if she could live there. She probably wants to own the land and house herself. But I don't know if Nancy actually owns the house now. When Mark and I got married, he said that since Nancy would take care of their dad, I wouldn't have to. We planned to let Nancy inherit the house. That's why we bought our own house. It might make their dad feel better to be taken care of by his daughter instead of me if he ever gets sick and needs help. When we go to visit Mark's family for Christmas or summer holidays, Nancy doesn't treat her dad very well. Even during meals, it feels like he's not part of the family. If Mark or I try to sit with him, Nancy gets upset and says he prefers to eat alone. After meals, when I talk to my father-in-law in his room, he tells me he's not happy living there because Nancy causes problems. He says he always eats separately from Nancy's family and gets less food. But Nancy still takes a lot of money from him, even though he only has his pension. Nancy doesn't do his laundry or help with chores much. My father-in-law does most of the cleaning and gardening because Nancy ignores him. Even her husband and kids don't treat him well. When my father-in-law asked Nancy's husband for a ride to the horse race track, he got yelled at. Nancy's son, who's 10, is rude to my father-in-law, saying he smells and should stay in his room. It seems like my father-in-law doesn't remember ever holding his grandson, even though they've lived together since he was born. When my daughter visits, my father-in-law loves spending time with her. He tells her she's his only grandchild, sounding a bit lonely. Hearing this makes me feel sorry for him. Whenever we go to his house, my husband gets upset and tells Nancy to treat their dad better. But Nancy gets angry with my husband, accusing him of trying to take the house away from her. I won't let anyone take this house, my husband insists. It's worrying how much Nancy cares about the house. Then, my father-in-law had a fall at home. The house isn't set up for elderly people, and he tripped over a small step, breaking his right hand. Luckily, he didn't have any other injuries and didn't need to go to the hospital, but it's hard for him to do anything without his right hand. When we visited him, we were shocked to see how weak he'd become. Not only can he not use his right hand, but he can hardly move his feet and clearly needs help. But Nancy's family completely ignores him and doesn't take care of him. He can still manage to get to the bathroom by himself, but eating is really hard for him. My husband confronted my sister-in-law right away. "Why aren't you looking after Dad?" But she didn't seem to understand why he was upset and just laughed it off. A broken hand is no big deal. He can walk by himself, and he's not complaining. It seemed like my father-in-law, used to being ignored, couldn't stand up to my sister-in-law, and she probably knew it. My husband was even more angry. "Isn't it obvious we should take care of our parents?" When he said that, my sister-in-law smirked and said, "You can take care of Dad. I don't want an old man with hardly any money." I was furious at how my sister-in-law could talk about her own father like that. She even said, taking care of a father who only gets a small pension isn't worth it. Her words were so mean that I lost my temper and spoke up. "Fine, we'll take care of him. He won't heal properly if he stays here." My husband agreed, and we decided to take my father-in-law and leave his house right away. While we were packing up my father-in-law's things, my sister-in-law started saying we couldn't have the house just because we were taking care of Dad. She cared more about the house than her own father and didn't have much else to say. My husband brushed off her comments, saying, "Don't worry, I already bought a house. I don't need this one. Do whatever you want with it." My sister-in-law seemed relieved to hear that. Even as we were getting ready for my father-in-law to move, my sister-in-law and her husband didn't help. Instead, they were mostly interested in checking if there were any valuable items among his belongings. They were probably relying on his pension, but with him leaving, that would stop. They hoped to find something valuable they could sell for cash, but they didn't find anything valuable. When my father-in-law left his house, my sister-in-law and her family didn't bother to say goodbye. They were very cold-hearted. When my father-in-law arrived at our house, he seemed much happier as he played with my daughter. He was like a different person compared to when he was living at his old house. We let him stay in a room that we weren't using, but because the move happened suddenly, we couldn't make any preparations. If we had known earlier, we could have done some renovations, like installing handrails and removing steps. I said to my father-in-law, feeling sorry that we weren't fully prepared, "I'll install the handrails later." To my surprise, my father-in-law also apologized. "I'm sorry for making you worry. I wonder if $200 million will be enough to take care of me and my horses." I couldn't help but laugh. Was my father-in-law making jokes now? He seemed much happier since moving in with us. "Horses?" I chuckled, knowing it was unlikely. "I'm not sure how much it costs to take care of horses, but taking care of you will probably cost more." I couldn't understand why my father-in-law brought up horses, but his jokes seemed way over the top, like something a wealthy person might say. But when I saw his worried face after my response, I started to worry too. He asked, "Does taking care of a person really cost that much?" "All I have left is $200 million. Looking at his serious expression, I realized he wasn't joking earlier. I panicked and tried to explain that my previous comment was just a joke. $200 million is more than enough. It's actually too much. I rushed to my husband to ask about the horses and the $200 million. He was just as confused, but then he remembered something about his grandfather being a landowner. "Remember how I told you my granddad was wealthy? Maybe Dad used to own horses." My husband and I decided to talk to my father-in-law to get the full story. It turned out that he had been owning horses for years, and his trips to the racetrack were actually to check on his own horses, not to bet. He had kept this a secret from his family, so my husband and his sister had no clue about it. Now, with his broken hand and thinking about his future, he worried that if he mentioned owning horses and having $200 million in assets, his daughter and son-in-law might demand it all. He got concerned when I mentioned making home modifications, thinking it might trigger their demands. That's why he decided to tell me about his horse ownership and finances. Understanding the situation, my husband reassured his father, saying, "I'm not sure how much it costs to take care of horses. If you've got $200 million, you should be okay. We'll handle your caregiving expenses, so don't worry about it." His confident words reassured me too. After checking with the person who had always looked after the horses, we made sure there wouldn't be any issues, and we'd put the horse matter to rest. Now that I knew my father-in-law was quite wealthy, I started to see him in a different way. I couldn't help but think that his daughter, who had kicked him out despite his wealth, would regret it once she found out the truth. The idea of her regret brought me some satisfaction. Since my father-in-law moved in with us, our lives had changed. It was busy juggling my part-time job and taking care of him, but my husband helped, and we managed. Having my father-in-law at home brought a new companion for my daughter, and he seemed happier too. His walking had improved since he moved in, and even though we hadn't finished the home modifications yet, he could walk slowly with a cane. Although his broken hand hadn't healed yet, he was practicing eating with his left hand. In his old home, my father-in-law didn't move around much because his nephew would complain whenever he left his room. Even when he tried to go to the racetrack, his son-in-law would seem annoyed. This lack of activity might have contributed to his muscles weakening and his fall. On sunny days, he enjoyed going for walks with my daughter. I had been so focused on my father-in-law's recovery that I hadn't thought much about my sister-in-law. However, 3 months after my father-in-law moved in with us, my sister-in-law called in a panic. "Is Dad there? If he is, get him on the phone right away." But at that moment, my father-in-law was out for a walk with my husband and daughter. When I told her that, she got even angrier. "You knew, didn't you? You knew that house was rented. That's why you took Dad to cause problems for us." I was confused by what she said. She seemed to be suggesting that their house was rented, but she had always boasted that it was theirs. While it might still be in my father-in-law's name, calling it a rented house didn't add up. As I struggled to respond, my sister-in-law became even more upset. Some man claiming to be the landlord of our family home showed up, saying I'm behind on rent and that I need to either pay up or leave. I was even more confused when she mentioned the landlord of the in-laws' home. Shouldn't it be my father-in-law? Did he go to collect rent for my sister-in-law? Just then, my father-in-law returned, so I quickly explained the situation and had him answer my sister-in-law's call. With a hint of anger in his voice, my father-in-law spoke to the daughter who had driven him out of his own home. "Weren't you told that the house was rented? That house belongs to the company where my father was the CEO. I've been paying the rent until you kicked me out." My father-in-law sounded distant, and my sister-in-law, sensing his anger, shouted from the phone, "I haven't heard anything about this. I'm coming over right now, so wait for me." About 30 minutes later, my sister-in-law and her husband arrived, looking flushed and surprised to see my father-in-law walking on his own. But there were bigger issues to address as my sister-in-law erupted once more. "I thought the land and house belonged to you, Dad. Did you deceive me?" my sister-in-law's husband asked. "All that aside, can you please pay the rent? If you don't, we'll be kicked out of the house." My father-in-law laughed it off. "Why should I pay rent for a house where I'm not living? After you guys kicked me out, don't you think that's a bit too much to ask?" Unable to respond to my father-in-law's reasonable statement, my brother-in-law fell silent. This time, my sister-in-law began to speak. "Dad, were you planning to make us struggle from the beginning? You seem far more energetic than when you were living with us, even though you pretended to be injured." To address my sister-in-law's strange accusation, I intervened. "That's because he's been doing rehabilitation exercises every day, working on walking, and practicing using his injured hand for eating." My father-in-law chimed in, reinforcing my words. "I actually think being kicked out by you guys was a blessing. Since I came to live with Mark, we all eat together, and I'm never made to feel like a nuisance." Upon hearing this, my sister-in-law and her husband fell silent, their jaws clenching shut. Then, right on cue, my daughter came and unwittingly revealed my father-in-law's true status. "Grandpa, your horse is going to race in the next horse race, right?" My father-in-law grinned and replied, "Yes, it'll be in this Sunday's race. Why don't we go watch it together?" My daughter happily dashed off, but my sister-in-law and her husband seemed to grasp the significance of this. They hastily asked my father-in-law, "Dad, do you own a horse? Are you a horse owner?" My father-in-law replied, a smug look on his face, "I stayed silent because I knew if I mentioned money, you'd try to take it. And I know talking about horse racing always makes your husband frown." With that, my father-in-law's previously cheerful demeanor turned serious. His intimidating expression sent shivers down my spine, and as he began to speak slowly, the tension in the room intensified. I no longer consider someone like you, who disrespects your own father, as my daughter. I knew you only moved in with me for the inheritance. Caught off guard by my father-in-law's stern words, my sister-in-law was visibly stunned. With the final blow, my father-in-law declared, "You won't get a single cent of my inheritance." Upon hearing this, my sister-in-law appeared shocked and stumbled backward. Her husband, who had been trying to support her, looked defeated and left the room. The rent for my father-in-law's house was a hefty sum, and it was impossible for my sister-in-law and her husband to afford it. So inevitably, they had to move out. I had no idea that my parents-in-law's house was rented, and my husband didn't know either. He later confirmed it with his father. After moving out, my sister-in-law, who had been spending money recklessly without worrying about rent, suddenly found herself in a financial crisis. Their spending habits were hard to break, and they started relying on credit cards to make ends meet, which only resulted in mounting debt. I heard that my sister-in-law and her husband, unable to rely on my father-in-law anymore, moved to her husband's parents' house. But I'm not sure what happened after that. Meanwhile, things have been going well for us since we started living with my father-in-law. My father-in-law, who had previously broken his hand, healed well, and his legs and hips became stronger to the point where he could do everything on his own. He's now so energetic that he goes jogging with my daughter. He's like a completely different person from when we first moved in. Since that incident, my father-in-law has been having discussions with my husband and thinking about the future, even drafting a will. I'm not sure what's in the will, but I assume he's arranged things so that his daughter won't inherit anything. What made me happiest was when my father-in-law paid off the remaining balance of our home loan. We still had nearly 20 years of payments left, but I'm grateful that he paid it off ahead of schedule. With the loan fully paid, my father-in-law is considering doing some renovations to our home to make it more accessible. He talks about his plans with a smile, but I don't want him to talk about becoming bedridden. I want him to stay healthy for as long as possible. "I don't like anything about you, mother," said my eldest son's wife. "We want to live with our family alone, so get out." I was shocked to hear these words. It reminded me of when I had to leave my own parents' home. Now, I felt angry at the idea of being kicked out of this house too. "Fine, I'll leave," I said, gathering my things to go. This was too much. I was determined never to forgive my eldest son's wife. It was time to put my plan into action. "So, my name is Sandra Clark, and I'm 61 years old this year. I'm technically retired, but I'm still lucky enough to have some work. I don't go to the office every day anymore. Sometimes I drop by and attend meetings, but mostly I work from home. My oldest son seems to think I'm not working anymore, which isn't true. I became a widow when I was in my 40s. Right now, I live with my oldest son and his wife. Our family home has been in our family for a long time. It's a bit old and needs some fixing up, but I've always loved it. That's why leaving was hard. I've never had to worry much about money. My late husband's insurance money is still mostly untouched. I've been able to live comfortably without worrying about my future. Even though it might seem like I have an easy life, there are some things that bother me. It's mostly my oldest son's wife, Jessica. She's strong-willed and we often clash. This tension didn't just start recently. It goes back to when she first told us they were getting married. I still remember the outfit she wore when she first came to meet us. She showed up in a tracksuit that looked like something she wore back in high school. She said she wanted to be real with us, but I couldn't help but find it a bit odd. It's not exactly lying, but it felt like she was trying too hard to prove something. She's also very argumentative and smart, which can be challenging. I couldn't understand why my oldest son chose her as his partner. Later, I found out that Jessica was the one who pursued him. She's bold, I'll give her that, and she's attractive too. I think my son, who's a bit naive and sheltered, fell for her charm. Even after they decided to marry, things didn't change much. To put it nicely, she's straightforward. To be blunt, sometimes she lacks common sense in how she acts. I really wanted to object to their marriage, but I reminded myself that it's what my son wanted, so I kept my peace. And now, we're facing the consequences of that decision. After my son and Jessica got married, he insisted that we all live together in our family home. I thought Jessica might disagree, but she was actually okay with the idea. It didn't take long for me to understand why. However, once we started living together, Jessica never lifted a finger to help with household chores. She left everything for me to do, cleaning, laundry, cooking. Despite being a full-time housewife herself, she had quit her job when they got married. Even though I work remotely and don't have to go to the office every day, I still have less free time than Jessica. While I'm working on my computer, Jessica would make comments belittling my work, saying I'm just goofing off. At first, I brushed it off to avoid arguments, but it bothered me more and more as it kept happening. Jessica, since you have some free time, could you help out with the cleaning? I asked, noticing her lounging and watching TV. She looked at me with disgust, sighed dramatically, and replied, I don't do housework for your own good, mother. Can't you see that? It's a shame you don't appreciate my consideration. She had this strange theory where she believed if she did the housework, it would be bad for my health. According to her, seniors need to stay active, and doing chores would make me sedentary and possibly lead to dementia. So she was actually doing me a favor by letting me handle everything. Her reasoning was so bizarre it gave me a headache. Then she said something even more shocking. I agreed to live together to keep you from slacking off, mother. She said it with a half smile, leaving me speechless. I regretted agreeing to live together more and more every day. Doing all the housework while being watched by Jessica was nothing but torture. Fed up with the situation, I decided to talk to my eldest son, but it wasn't to complain about Jessica. I decided to move to an apartment where I could live alone. The current house we're in is old and has many stairs, which became difficult for me after I hurt my back last year. I talked to my son about the challenges of living here, and then I moved to an apartment. Even though it felt like Jessica pushed me out, I don't regret leaving. The new apartment is a rental. It might be a bit big for just me, but I got a room big enough for my grandchildren to stay in the future. I had the inside designed just the way I like it, and it felt like my own little castle. But my happiness didn't last long because Jessica started coming over every day and staying until late. The new apartment is really nice, huh? Maybe too big for you, Mom? Jessica said, lounging on the couch. Why don't you come back to your old home and do the chores? It's for your health and longevity. It's unbelievable that Jessica is telling me to go back to the old house and do the chores. During the day, she's so self-centered, it's overwhelming. I've already moved out. You need to take responsibility as the wife. I handle all the chores here, and my health checkups are always fine, Jessica. You don't need to worry about me. But Jessica just turned away, ignoring my words. Ignoring anything inconvenient was her usual tactic. Yet, she kept coming to my apartment every day. Just recently, she said it's too much trouble to go back home and ended up spending the night. My parents' house and this apartment are only about a 15-minute walk apart. It was my eldest son who suggested I live closer to my parents' house because he was concerned. His concern made me a little sad to leave the old house. One day, after I had been out for work-related errands, I came back in the evening to a surprise. To my shock, Jessica had let herself into my apartment. It seemed she used the spare key I had given to my son without my knowledge. Welcome back, she said, lying on the floor in front of the TV without even bothering to get up. Jessica, that spare key is for emergencies only, not for you to come in whenever I'm not home. I felt uneasy knowing she had been in my apartment while I was away. It was the first time I firmly told her so. She seemed surprised, as I usually let things slide quickly. She gave me an annoyed look, but I stood my ground. You really are a difficult mother-in-law. I can't stand that about you. Jessica started yelling at me. I can't stand anything about you, not even this apartment. We're a family, so you should leave. With that, she tried to push me out the door. It seemed Jessica couldn't bear the idea of me living in the apartment. She was upset that they were still in the old house while I was here, calling it unfair. James is paying the rent for this place, right? It wouldn't be strange for us, his family, to live here. That's what it means to live beyond your means. Jessica seemed to think my son was covering the rent for the apartment. This explained why she kept showing up here. In her mind, the apartment should have been for her family to live in. Fine, I'll leave, I said firmly, staring her down. I agreed to move out within 3 days, which seemed to surprise her. Right in front of her, I called a moving company and arranged for them to come in 2 days. As Jessica left feeling satisfied, I watched her go, already planning my next move. True to my word, I moved out. My new place was an apartment specifically designed for seniors. I decided to test it out for 2 weeks. I handed over the keys and lease documents to Jessica, asking for a change in the contract through the real estate agent to the landlord. Luckily, I've known the landlord for a long time, so they were flexible and accommodating, which was a relief. My eldest son was furious with Jessica for kicking me out. He's even considering divorce, but Jessica doesn't seem to care. In fact, she started living alone in my apartment, saying, "Well then, let's live separately." I'm amazed at how bold she is. But in 5 days, Jessica will find out the truth. While I was working from home, my phone started ringing incessantly. It was Jessica calling. I had been expecting this, so I had a recorder ready to record the conversation. I pressed the record button and answered the call. "Excuse me, Mother, what's the deal with the rent for this apartment? Why do I have to pay it?" Jessica started ranting as soon as I picked up the phone. She sounded flustered. "Well, Jessica, you're the current leaseholder, so it's only fair that you pay. Is there a problem?" I purposely kept my tone calm and relaxed to annoy Jessica. She seemed even more agitated but didn't back down. "But didn't James used to pay the rent here? We're not even divorced yet, so shouldn't James pay?" Jessica had told my eldest son about the rent issue and he advised her to call me. The truth was, my son had never paid the rent. In fact, I had been financially supporting him. After retiring, I continued working as a consultant and advisor, earning a good salary. I was actually earning more than my son. I had been secretly helping him out because Jessica tended to spend a lot. "It's just a misunderstanding, Jessica. Originally, I was the one paying the rent for that place. I never made James pay a dime." Jessica seemed shocked and caught off guard by the truth. She quickly said what she wanted to and hung up the phone. Right away, I contacted my eldest son and played him the recorded conversation. "I've been putting up with it too, but I can't take it anymore. You feel the same way, don't you?" I knew my son was exhausted from dealing with Jessica's debts. No matter how old he gets, as a parent, I can't help but want to help him out. Some might say I'm too soft, but I think it's just natural as a parent. My son replied quietly, "I'll divorce her, I'm tired too." Then follow my lead. I told him my plan and gave him instructions. First, I asked him to take a few days of paid leave starting today. Then, I told him to quietly move out his important belongings without letting Jessica know. We didn't want her to notice any moving trucks, as she might be nearby. I had instructed him to slowly move his things out during the night, keeping it discreet. The important belongings were taken to a single-family home that I had found as our new residence. This way, the plan progressed without Jessica knowing. 3 days later, Jessica called again, sounding even more flustered than before. "What? Why are you so worked up? Just like last time." I kept my tone deliberately relaxed as Jessica sounded overly anxious, almost in a state of panic. "Mother, our house is up for sale. And I got a call from my parents saying that my belongings have arrived at their house." "What does that mean?" Jessica explained that her parents had received her belongings, and our old house was now on the market. It seemed my eldest son had followed my instructions. He had sent Jessica's things to her parents' house and put our old house up for sale, leaving it empty. The landlord told me that if I can't pay the rent, I should leave. I thought I should consult with James, and when I got home, there were chains and a padlock on the gate, and I couldn't get in. There's even a for sale sign up. Jessica was almost hysterical. It must have been quite a shock for her to come home to. "I've already entered into a sales contract with a realtor. We can't access that house anymore," Jessica had began, ready to express all the pent-up frustration. "Firstly, I'm no longer your mother-in-law, right? Yesterday, James should have filed for divorce. You signed it, didn't you? You and I are strangers now." Yesterday, my eldest son had filed for divorce at the city office. It turns out Jessica had signed the papers a while ago. Threatening divorce seemed to be a tactic she often used. My son used to believe that Jessica would change someday. After all, she was the person he loved enough to marry. He felt trapped into giving in to her threats of divorce, he once told me. But it seems my son has finally realized the truth. He signed the divorce papers, which had always been used as leverage, and submitted them. The divorce has been officially processed. You always used to tell James that you could divorce anytime. Are you happy now that things have turned out your way, Jessica? I could sense Jessica holding her breath on the other end of the phone. She wanted to argue back but seemed lost for words. She must have been feeling frustrated. "Besides, I'm worried about you. After the divorce, how will you manage to live in that apartment without a job? Moving also costs money, and it's tough. How did you even afford it? Jessica's anger was no longer hidden. She yelled and cursed at me. She had claimed she married my son because of the inheritance he received from my late husband. However, I control all the inheritance and she can't touch a penny of it. Despite marrying to clear debts, she screamed that nothing was going well for her. Of course, I made sure my son listened to this conversation too. If it came to a divorce settlement, I planned to use the recording as evidence. I thought it was the end, so I patiently waited for Jessica to finish her tantrum. She ranted for about 15 minutes without pause. Then, in the end, she started begging me for help, crying. She confessed that she had been disowned by her family. With nowhere else to go, she pleaded for my assistance. It suddenly clicked for me. Something had felt off at the wedding, and now I understood what it was. Jessica had no place to go, no home to return to. Despite feeling a bit sorry for her, I couldn't ignore the consequences of her actions. Apologizing now won't change anything. We're strangers now. There's nothing more to discuss. Good luck with your life from here on, I said before ending the call with Jessica. I felt a sense of relief afterward. It seems Jessica caused trouble at my eldest son's workplace. He told me things escalated to the point of involving the police when he returned home. Jessica, who had been staying at the apartment without paying rent, had her keys changed by the landlord while she was out. Now, she can't even get into her own apartment. She might have tried to contact me or my son, but we had canceled our phones and got new ones with new numbers. I can only imagine the despair she felt when she realized she couldn't reach us no matter how many times she tried. We didn't give her our new address either, so she can't reach us that way. After causing a scene at my son's company, she was issued a restraining order. With no other options, it seems Jessica turned to her disowned family for help. However, when she returned home, she was met with a shocking sight. The luggage I had sent to her family's house was left out in the rain in the backyard, and she wasn't even allowed inside the house. It's likely that the unpaid rent for the apartment had been billed to her parents, adding to their anger. I heard rumors that she's currently staying in an apartment provided by an organization that supports homeless people. Without the ability to spend as she did before, she seemed stressed when I passed her on the street. I was stunned to see how much her hair had turned white and how dry her skin looked. She had changed so much. I hardly recognized Jessica at first. It made me realize just how much a change in living conditions can affect a person. I've started a new life in the house I bought with my late husband's inheritance. It's a duplex, so my son can remarry whenever he wants. For now, he joins me for dinner, but otherwise, he takes care of his own things. I've found that this distance works well for us. The money from selling my parents' home is safe for future needs. I plan to use it for my son and his future wife when they marry. And of course, I'll keep some aside for any future grandchildren. I'm thinking of creating the English garden I've always dreamed of in my new home. On days when I'm not working, I spend time in the garden, caring for the young trees and herbs. This new life, filled with hope, has become my daily routine. You took the pain pills, right? So you shouldn't hurt anymore, right? And go ahead and vacuum. My husband looked at the pills I just swallowed. Wait a bit for them to work. I'll do the vacuuming properly, I said. He got up with a big sigh. I'm not saying I want to switch chores with him, but he could at least wait a bit, I thought, trying not to sigh. Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through my back, and I fell to the floor. I saw my husband rudely propping his foot on the back of the sofa. The pain was so bad I couldn't talk. Did he just kick me in the back? My husband laughed at me. I don't care if you're in pain. Just hurry up and vacuum. My name is Sally, and I'm 27 years old. I'm a regular housewife living with my husband Jacob. Our story goes back to when I joined the same company where Jacob worked. After finishing university, I got a job in sales. Jacob helped me a lot in the beginning, acting as my mentor. Jacob was handsome with short hair, and customers liked him. He had a talent for persuading people and sealing deals easily. In sales, there are two types of successful people: those who know a lot about what they're selling and use that to convince customers, and those who just have a way with people and make customers want to buy from them personally. Jacob was definitely the second type. At first, I just looked up to Jacob for his success in sales, but when I struggled to close a deal and felt low, Jacob reached out to me. Over time, we grew closer, going out for meals and spending more time together. Eventually, I developed feelings for him. So when we started dating, I was incredibly happy, even crying tears of joy. and when he proposed, I was so thrilled that I couldn't stop jumping around with happiness. After we got married, we were very happy together. But there's one thing that brings me down sometimes. I had severe menstrual cramps since I was in school. At first, I used simple painkillers from the store, but as time passed, I needed stronger ones to handle the pain. When Jacob and I were dating, he was really understanding during my periods. He would change his plans to help me, rub my back when I was hurting, and listen to me complain. I thought this care would continue after we got married, but things changed. During my period, I'd do my chores when the painkillers kicked in, take a break on the sofa for a bit, and then get back to work. But to Jacob, it seemed like I was just lying around all day. No matter how much I did around the house, he never showed any sympathy. Then we bought a new house. We used to live in an apartment, but we got a bigger place because we wanted to have kids someday. Jacob's parents like to have parties, so he decided we should host the next one at our new house. Jacob got everything organized really quickly. He told everyone the date and time of the party and gave me a list of relatives who were coming, along with their ages and what foods they didn't like. I was shocked when Jacob told me, sounding annoyed, that I needed to cater to everyone's taste for the party and that he wouldn't forgive me if I bought ready-made food. Planning the menu was tough because everyone had different dislikes, and what one person liked, another person hated. I spent several nights staying up late planning the menu. Then, just as my period, which was a bit late, started, I took a painkiller and finished cleaning the room. I decorated it with flowers, put out air fresheners, and kept going over the party plans in my head. That evening, I finished preparing the food for the party and went to bed. Jacob was laughing loudly at the TV while having his nightly drink while I was trying to finish up, dealing with my period pain. I fell asleep, remembering Jacob's laughter. On the morning of the party, I woke up before Jacob made breakfast and started cooking for the guests while tidying up. I kept checking the clock nervously as I worked. After finishing cooking, I set the dishes on the table and checked the entrance, living room, and bathroom thoroughly. The painkiller was wearing off, and the pain was getting worse. I sat down on the sofa, feeling like I couldn't bear it anymore. I wanted to lie down, but I had done my hair and makeup nicely, and I didn't know when the relatives would arrive, so I stayed seated. I looked at Jacob, who was watching TV with a drink in his hand. Even though we had to greet the guests soon, he was already drinking. I wanted to say something, but the words wouldn't come out. Jacob noticed me looking at him and glared back. "What's wrong? Are you telling me not to drink so early?" Jacob asked. "No, not really." Suddenly there was a loud noise. "I get nervous too, you know. And you seem so relaxed on the sofa. I figured you were done getting ready," Jacob said, setting down his drink and walking toward me. His stare made me feel uneasy, and I had a bad feeling about it. "I'm almost done, but my period started. I took some painkillers, but they're wearing off, so I'm taking a short break. I'll be fine soon," I explained to Jacob. Hearing this, Jacob let out a heavy sigh and glared at me. "Don't act like a victim just because of a little stomachache. My mom never complained like this," Jacob snapped. Right after he said that, I felt like Jacob was walking behind me, but suddenly, I was kicked in the back and fell from the sofa to the floor. It took me a moment to realize I had been kicked. Ignoring me, Jacob sat back on the sofa and started playing a game on his phone as if nothing had happened. I didn't understand what was going on, but one thing was clear. Jacob was enjoying his game, not apologizing at all. As I tried to get up to leave, Jacob suddenly fell to the floor. I quickly looked up to see his father standing behind the sofa, looking very angry. I couldn't take my eyes off him. "What's happening?" Jacob asked, looking confused as he checked the sofa. "Dad, did you just push me?" Jacob inquired, picking up his phone from the floor. "I didn't just push you, I shoved you," my father-in-law replied. "Why? What's going on?" "Wait, are you serious? Why would you kick someone in the back? Especially Jacob, she's your wife." My father-in-law scolded him. Jacob seemed a bit surprised by my father-in-law's anger. "Well, you know, I had a few drinks and lost control," he tried to explain, but my father-in-law wasn't buying it. "Don't blame it on alcohol. No excuse for a man to hit a woman," my father-in-law said firmly. "What do you mean?" "It's just a way to discipline," Jacob argued back. "Discipline? She was taking a break on the sofa because she was in pain. I was teaching her that she doesn't work, she doesn't rest." "Isn't that right, Sally?" Jacob asked, turning to me for support. I didn't know how to answer Jacob's sudden question. I had finished preparing and was just trying to rest on the sofa. Maybe I should just tell the truth. Seeing my dilemma, my father-in-law looked at me. Sally, is what Jacob said true? He asked. I couldn't bring myself to answer. If I told the truth now, Jacob might get upset, and that wouldn't be fair to the relatives who were coming over to see our new home. I was trying to figure out what to say when my father-in-law spoke again. Sally, your silence says a lot, doesn't it? He remarked. Sorry, I managed to mumble, feeling confused by his words. If Jacob was telling the truth, you would have confirmed it right away, but you stayed silent. Does that mean there's something, or everything, wrong with this story? My father-in-law's words struck me hard. I wanted to tell the truth. Everything's ready, we just need to welcome the guests. I'm just not feeling well today, I said, trying to be diplomatic. Ah, you're just on your period? Jacob interjected abruptly. I felt like crying at his lack of sensitivity. I had carefully chosen my words to avoid such a direct topic in front of my father-in-law, and yet. Stop saying my period is just an excuse for feeling unwell. If you're done with your tasks, just say so. It seems like you think I'm sitting around doing nothing because I haven't finished. Jacob kept talking, not noticing how hard I'd been working. That's how Jacob saw things. He didn't remember me telling him earlier that I was almost done with the preparations. He didn't see all the work I've been doing since early morning, even since yesterday, getting everything ready and cooking. He didn't see me taking pills to cope with the pain and keep going. He decided we have the gathering here but didn't lift a finger to help with the preparations or cooking. I did it all by myself. I started to get really angry. Listen to me, I began, but Jacob cut me off. She's always complaining about how bad her menstrual cramps are, but she never gets used to them. Every month when she gets her period, this is what happens, Jacob said, turning to his father. Dad, Mom wasn't like this, right? Jacob sought validation. But it seems I made the right choice to come over early and help Sally since you, Jacob, decided to host this gathering without considering her. What? Inconsiderate? Me. No, Jacob, that's you. If you had worked with Sally, you would have seen how hard she worked on the preparations despite her pain. Instead, what did you do? Did you start drinking before everyone arrived? You were the one slacking off, Jacob. My father-in-law's outburst shocked everyone there. Jacob seemed to shrink back at his father's words. I didn't want Jacob to regret this like I do. I've tried to educate you about this, but... My father-in-law sat down heavily, sighing deeply. Your mother also suffered from severe menstrual cramps like Sally. As a man with no knowledge about menstruation, back when information wasn't as easily available as it is now, I used to think your mother, who couldn't handle her own body, was just being spoiled. I thought only people who couldn't manage themselves suffered from menstruation. My father-in-law spoke slowly, as if remembering the past, his gaze distant. Back then, painkillers were just for peace of mind. Your mother, being a full-time housewife, was told by my mother to do all the household chores. No matter how much menstrual pain she was in, I didn't let her rest. Then, one day, your mother fainted. I rushed her to the hospital, and the doctor told us she had endometriosis. Because of that, her dream of giving you siblings became impossible. My father-in-law continued. Jacob listened intently, staring at my father-in-law's face. Every person's body is different, and not everyone will have the same experiences. But if you ignore severe menstrual pain, it can lead to illness. Your mother did get sick. She was dealing with household chores, raising children, caring for her in-laws, and living with an inconsiderate husband. She had many sources of stress. She ended up infertile and couldn't get pregnant as she had hoped. I blamed it on the times and blamed my mother, but I was wrong. It was my responsibility to understand. It's a pain that we men can't experience, so I should have properly listened to your mother and accepted her as she was. I failed to do that. It was my fault. I regret not challenging my mother's views and remaining ignorant, even now. My father-in-law spoke in a somber tone, gently supported by my mother-in-law. I could only nod to my mother-in-law, who had just arrived, with a sad smile on her face. You did your best to understand me, didn't you? Despite your demanding job, you even helped out with household chores. And to think that you cut ties with your own parents for me, my mother-in-law looked at my father-in-law with kind eyes. Of course I did. I didn't want to burden you any more than I already had. I wanted the three of us to live happily, so that's why I did what I did. But cutting ties with my parents was a big decision. I wanted to avoid having to make such big decisions. That's why I've always tried to teach you, Jacob, hoping that you wouldn't make the same mistakes as I did. But it seems that I wasn't able to convey that to you at all. My father-in-law explained. Feeling the weight of the conversation, Jacob tried to lighten the mood. Hey, don't you think you're being a bit too dramatic, Dad? In my memory, sure, there were times when Mom was really unwell and had to lie down. But I don't remember her ever having to lay down because of something as minor as her period. Is this some kind of nostalgia bias? Are you maybe just assuming it was harder than it really was? Jacob's words hit a nerve. My mother-in-law's hand, resting on my father-in-law's shoulder, trembled slightly. He gently patted her hand and gave Jacob a stern look. You just forgot. Of course, as a mother, she'd want to shield her child from worry. She tried her best not to let you see. But if it were just a matter of gritting your teeth and bearing it, it wouldn't be a disease. Your mother did have to lie down because she was suffering from period pain. I remember you coming home from school and saying that she was asleep again. I remember having an honest discussion with you about it. She wasn't just shirking responsibilities. She had no choice but to lie down because she was unwell. It seems you didn't even notice that. You weren't looking at Sally, and you weren't looking at your mother either. My father-in-law expressed his disappointment. Upon hearing Jacob's words, my father-in-law looked visibly disheartened. I didn't know what to say or if I should even try to ease the tension. Just then, there was a knock at the door. Glancing at the clock, it was 5 minutes before our agreed gathering time. Despite my aching stomach, I hurriedly answered the door. As expected, it was one of our relatives. I quickly greeted them and rushed back to the front door. Upon opening it, all of our relatives stood there, holding a beautifully arranged bouquet of flowers as a housewarming gift. I thanked them warmly, provided guest slippers, and courteously ushered them into the living room. When all the relatives entered the living room, the tension between Jacob and my in-laws was palpable. The relatives exchanged uneasy glances with each other. What's happening? One of the relatives asked my father-in-law. Thanks for coming to Jacob's housewarming party. We were just in the middle of a disagreement, so I apologize for the tense atmosphere, my father-in-law explained. Jacob here thought Sally was just being lazy when she was actually resting on the sofa because she wasn't feeling well. He pushed her off the sofa. So I was reprimanding him. At my father-in-law's words, all the relatives looked shocked, and a younger woman among them approached me with concern. Are you okay? You must be exhausted from all the preparations, she said sympathetically. I shook my head in response. No, it's just. I'm dealing with really painful menstrual cramps. What are you saying? Even workplaces offer menstrual leave, you know. I've used it myself. The woman remarked in disbelief. The severity varies, but if it's really bad, you can take time off work. Why can't you rest at home? With determination, she turned her gaze towards Jacob, who seemed intimidated by the disapproving looks from his parents and all the relatives. Unable to withstand their stares, Jacob hurriedly left the room and retreated to his own. Despite his departure, neither his parents nor any of the relatives followed him. It appeared that the relatives understood my mother-in-law's condition, and even the men showed empathy, which was a relief. Immediately, my father-in-law and mother-in-law approached me, apologizing profusely for their son's behavior, while the relatives admired the newly constructed house and praised the delicious home-cooked meal I had prepared. Not a single person blamed me. Everyone was impressed by the meal I had served, and I received plenty of compliments. Feeling somewhat uplifted, the painkillers began to take effect, and I found myself enjoying the gathering. After some time, I received an email from Jacob. In his message, he expressed frustration that he couldn't enjoy the event because of me and lamented how unfair it was that he was being isolated from the family, with no one taking his side. His choice to communicate via email rather than face-to-face conversation left me feeling upset. As I was contemplating how to respond, my mother-in-law glanced at my smartphone. Upon seeing the message, she immediately rose from her seat. My father-in-law, noticing her reaction, inquired, "What's happening?" My mother-in-law swiftly took the smartphone from me and handed it to him. As my father-in-law read the message, he too stood up abruptly. He still doesn't get it. We need to take him back and start over with his education, he declared. It was an unexpected development, but my in-laws appeared resolute. Soon, the relatives also voiced agreement, suggesting that Jacob needed to be re-educated, and it seemed they were fully supportive of the idea. After some time, as the relatives gradually departed, my mother-in-law made her way to Jacob's room and pulled him out. With both his parents gripping his arms, they whisked him away before he could protest. About a week after Jacob returned to his parents' home, I received an email from him. He shared how my mother-in-law had been tirelessly educating him about women's bodies, the challenges of menstrual pain, and even had him do household chores while pretending to experience menstrual discomfort. He complained about the difficulty of balancing work and chores. I couldn't help but chuckle as I read his complaints. It seemed like they were indeed starting his education from scratch, just as they had promised. Perhaps now he was beginning to grasp a bit of what I had been going through, and it brought a smile to my face. During Jacob's absence, I decided to address my menstrual pain head-on. Encouraged by my female relatives who suggested seeing a gynecologist for my severe discomfort, I visited a clinic. The doctor provided helpful advice on medications and lifestyle changes. Living without Jacob's interference turned out to be surprisingly comfortable. I could go about my day at my own pace and rest on the sofa whenever I needed. It was a life where I could prioritize taking care of my body. I found myself wanting to prolong this peaceful period. Part of it was due to my mother-in-law's guidance, but mostly I simply enjoyed the relaxed lifestyle. I chose not to respond to any of Jacob's emails. A few weeks later, Jacob returned home with my in-laws. They sat him down at the dining table and handed him a business card. It turned out to be a lawyer's contact information, and I was shocked, fearing that we were about to initiate divorce proceedings right then and there. Feeling slightly overwhelmed, I listened as my father-in-law spoke quietly. "Sally, if he ever mistreats you again, don't hesitate to contact this person for a divorce," he said, his gaze serious. During the time Jacob was away, it seems he had a serious conversation with my in-laws and promised to change his ways. Since then, Jacob has kept his word, no longer acting arrogantly and willingly helping with household chores, especially when I'm struggling with my period. His dismissive comments about my period and its pain have also gradually faded away. Finally, I found myself settling into a peaceful life with Jacob, which was a huge relief. Going forward, I intend to prioritize my health and well-being, living sensibly and taking good care of my body.